the magician in the world of Doraemon. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 351. She is always the one who gets hurt. Shizuka, who was acting, finally reacted and kicked Nobita in the stomach with a 360-degree spin kick. Several people outside watched Nobita being kicked from the screen to outside the screen and mourned for him in their hearts for a few seconds. Then Shizuka also walked out from inside and the black makeup on her body disappeared instantly. The others had to come out from the light range and wait for Shizuka's next words. I don't want to act anymore. Really, every role is the same. What else is there to act? After saying that, Shizuka walked out of Nobita's house angrily and prepared to go home. The others hurriedly chased after her and began to think of ways to persuade her to come back and continue her performance. This is their only female role. How about this, Shizuka? You can play whatever role you want in the next performance. How about it? Under Sunya's persuasion, Shizuka finally decided not to leave for the time being and returned to the house. Well, I want to play the king who wears gorgeous costumes. Is that okay? Everyone nodded. Of course there is no problem with this. Doraemon, go and draw the script. Seeing that Shizuka was willing to come back here, the blue fat man happily went to the script collection and drew a number. The script tape was taken out and stuffed into the stage combination, and the scene required by the script emerged again. Yu and Daisy stood behind them, always feeling a bad premonition. Every previous script happened to have problems with Shizuka's role. Is there someone messing with it? His eyes began to scan everyone, wanting to see who interfered with the machine's choice. But from the beginning to the end, Yu and Daisy really didn't find anyone else touching this machine, including Nobita. Could it be that Doraemon specially chose this to give Nobita benefits? It's unlikely. While he was thinking, the lights on the stage lit up again, and everyone began to gather in the lights. At this time, Yu and Daisy had to give up this question, walked from here to the place where the lights were shining, and prepared to start this performance. Shizuka got what she wanted, and became a king, with gorgeous costumes and a long sword. Sunya and Fat Tiger were dressed like ordinary people, but looked a little cunning. As for Cousin, he became a minister of the kingdom, with a grey curly hair on his head. Nobita was a knight of the kingdom, wearing a silver armor, and looked quite decent. As for Yu and Daisy, he was dressed in ordinary civilian clothes, without any special features. You were so special before, but this time you changed me to a civilian. I really don't understand how it works. Everyone was quite satisfied with their roles, and then they were ready to start the performance. The first person to appear was Shizuka, who was talking to Fat Tiger and Sunya. Nobita and Cousin stood by, serving as a background for His Majesty the King. Your Majesty, please believe us, we can make the most gorgeous clothes in the world. Sunya smiled charmingly, and this look really matched his nature. Shizuka, who had seen so many fairy tales, finally realized something was wrong and shouted, Doraemon, what is the play we are performing this time? The blue fat man had to pull out the tape at this time. Wait a minute, let me see. It's the Emperor's New Clothes. The scene was silent for a few seconds, and then Shizuka walked out of the range of the stage lights angrily. Really, why are all the stories chosen by this machine so strange? Seeing her like this, everyone had to go up and persuade her not to take it to heart. These are just coincidences. Doraemon felt very strange. Why was Shizuka the one who got hurt every time? Under everyone's persuasion, Shizuka once again gave up the idea of leaving and gave them one last chance. Seeing that she was willing to come back, the blue fat man quickly opened the script collection and took out the script. Let me see. The fairy tale I drew this time is the silver coin of the star. Shizuka, who was afraid of being cheated, walked to Doraemon. This time, you should tell me the content of the story first. Doraemon nodded and began to recite the outline of the fairy tale. The story is about a poor but kind girl whose behavior moved the heavens. At the end of the story, in order to reward her kindness, the stars turned into silver coins and fell from the sky. After hearing this introduction, everyone finally felt relieved. It seemed that this was finally a normal story. Doraemon put the tape into the stage play group. Okay, let's start rehearsing now. Just as everyone was about to walk into the light, Fat Tiger suddenly stopped. Wait a minute, this time we finally have a normal script, so I don't want anyone to quit halfway. The blue fat man nodded. Okay, I know. This time I will turn on the forced mode, and you must finish the performance before you can come out. Then he pressed a button for the automatic action narration drama, and urged everyone to enter the light range. This time, everyone's clothes became tattered, and they looked like a group of beggars. But Yu and Dazzy was wearing a white robe, and holding a white glowing cane in his hand. Well, I'm another magical character. Every time his role is so different, and it really fits his identity. After pressing the forced button, everyone only had 5 seconds to prepare to enter the stage. Soon, the first act began, and Shizuka was still the first to appear. She was seen wearing tattered clothes, holding only a piece of bread in her hand, and looking at the sky, with tears in her eyes. My parents are dead, and I'm left alone, and I only have this piece of bread on me. As she said, she wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes with her hands and smiled. But I will definitely live strong. I know that God will definitely help me. Yu and Dazzy watched from the side, and couldn't help saying, this little girl's life experience is really tragic. Ziofu was rude for a moment and couldn't help. Yes, just like you. Oh, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Others turned a blind eye to the Shura field behind, including Zayashin, who has always opposed violence. He just drew a cross on his chest and blessed Sunia. Sorry, even I can't help you this time. Shizuka finished the first scene, and then it was Fat Tiger's turn. He knelt in the weeds by the roadside, holding his stomach and wailing. Sir, what's wrong with you? The kind little girl ran to him and asked him what happened. Fat Tiger raised his head weakly. I'm so hungry. I haven't eaten for 3 days now. The character played by Shizuka only had a piece of bread in his hand, but after Shizuka took a look, she reluctantly handed it to the homeless man. Please use it, sir. Fat Tiger bit the bread like a dog and performed the role of a starving person to the fullest. After eating a piece of bread, Fat Tiger finally had the strength to stand up. Thank you, my friend. God will bless you. Shizuka also smiled and returned the gift to him, wishing him to find a good job. After saying goodbye to the homeless man, Shizuka was almost ready to go home. But just as she was walking on the way home, Shizuka suddenly met Sunia curled up on the ground, still shivering, and it can be seen that he is not far from death. Chapter 352, Script finalized. When Sunia raised his head, Shizuka was almost frightened to death by his face that was swollen like a ghost. After finally coming to her senses, Shizuka quickly picked him up. You are Sunia. What happened to you? Who beat you like this? Sunia said weakly. Don't worry about it for now. I can't stand the cold anymore. Can you help me? Lend me your clothes. Shizuka had to follow the script. Okay, I'll give you my clothes now. I hope it can help you. Sunia took the tattered shirt, left this place with gratitude, and didn't forget to turn back and bless her. God will bless you, because you are a kind and good child. After seeing Sunia off, Shizuka looked up at the starry sky again. Now I suddenly have a very bad premonition. Amen. After walking a few steps forward, Shizuka met Diki, who was squatting on the ground and huddled together to keep warm. When she came, Zayashin stood up and said the lines under the control of the stage device. Sorry, my pants are torn. Can you give me your skirt? Yu and Dazzy finally couldn't help laughing in the backstage. Shizuka had carefully selected the script, but still couldn't escape this scene. And Doraemon outside was frantically operating the machine. If this play continued, there would be problems. But no matter what method he used, he couldn't stop the stage play, and the plot continued to move forward. In the end, Zayashin blushed and left the stage play with the skirt. The next person he met was Nobita, who was only wearing a pair of shorts. Seeing Shizuka coming, he stood up and said with a red face, sorry, can you take off your clothes? That's not what I want to say. Shizuka's face also turned red, but her body stretched out to the last piece of clothing uncontrollably, as if she wanted to meet Nobita's unreasonable request. Seeing that she was going to continue, Doraemon had to use his final plan. Now the only way is to destroy you. My props. I'm so sorry. Doraemon took out his big hammer, took a last look at the expensive universal stage device, and smashed it down with pain. After destroying the universal stage device and the automatic action narration drama, it finally stopped before the most critical scene. Without the influence of the outside world, Shizuka sat on the ground weakly. The worst result was finally avoided. She felt extremely fortunate. Everyone's clothes had returned to their original state, and then they all surrounded the blue fat man. Doraemon, what's wrong with your machine? He also expressed his helplessness. How do I know that this star's silver coin will have this plot? And as he sighed helplessly at the side. There were a total of 4 scenes, and he didn't show up even once. And Nobita was relieved, but he actually felt a little disappointed. Realizing that something was wrong with his emotions, Nobita instantly became furious and took it out on Doraemon. I see that none of your props are good, they're all junk. Fatty Blue was also unhappy, so he told him about Nobita. It was you who pressed the preference button on the script collection. Aren't these scenes what you wanted to see in your heart? Fat Tiger finally couldn't help it. I was wondering why the script has been weird. It turns out it's you. Regardless of the 2 people who were communicating with each other on the side, the others gathered together to continue discussing the welcome party. Now that the universal stage equipment has been destroyed, we can only rehearse by ourselves in the future. Shizuka also nodded. Then we'll rehearse at school. It's much better than this weird script. That's true. I'll find time to determine the theme of the stage play as soon as possible, and then we'll rehearse again. After sorting out her emotions, Shizuka left Nobita's room. Yu and Dazi went to find Sunia. Don't leave in a hurry. What happened just now is not over yet. After beating Sunia and returning home, the 2 of them sat helplessly in their seats and thought about life. Doraemon has so many props. Can't we even find a suitable script? Zyadishan came over and patted Yu and Dazi on the shoulder. It's okay. Let's go to the library tomorrow to have a look. There must be a suitable script. There is no better way now. This matter can only be settled like this. Well, what are we eating tonight? It's 5 o'clock now. Going out to buy vegetables at this time is obviously not realistic because there are no good dishes, although the price will be a little cheaper. The 2 had to go to the kitchen on the 1st floor to see what food they could have left for dinner. Green vegetables, beef, barbecued pork, and the leftover broth from last night. Why is there a pot of soup here? Demishan looked at Yu and Dazi next to him. He remembered that generally speaking, this big eater would not leave anything. You mean the pot of broth? I didn't want to drink it yesterday, so I left it there. What? Has it gone bad? Well, let's have noodle soup tonight, and we can eat the soup as well. After agreeing on what to eat in the evening, Zyadishan started to get busy in the kitchen, while Yu and Dazi was responsible for washing the dishes. After school the next day, they walked to the town library as they had agreed. The auntie guarding the gate already knew the 2 children and greeted them happily at the door. When they arrived at the library, they met 2 old acquaintances who were flipping through books. They walked up to greet them. Chuncheng, Daoshi, are you 2 here to find books in the library again? When they saw the 2 people coming, they quickly put down the books in their hands and took out the gold coins they gave them last time. This thing is a big gold, very valuable. We can't accept this gift. Then the 2 of them pushed the big gold forward, wanting to return it to them. Yu and Dazi smiled and pushed it back. We already knew that this thing was specially given to you. After hearing what Yu and Dazi said, both of them looked puzzled. Why did they give such an expensive dappengin to the 2 of them? It's not convenient for me to explain the specific reason, but the thing has been sent out, and we won't take it back. Right, Linkei. Zyadishan nodded. Yes, just think of it as an apology for Yu and Dazi accidentally hurting you. The 2 of them were even more confused. What on earth were these 2 talking about? Was it Japanese? Ignoring the 2 people standing there with question marks on their faces, they walked straight to the bookshelf at the back. After looking around and repeatedly confirming that no one was observing here, Demishan was about to start his work. Dazi, help me watch if anyone is coming nearby. I don't want to scare people because of me and then erase their memories. As he spoke, books on the nearby bookshelf floated out one after another and were quickly flipped through by Demishan's mental power. After looking through hundreds of books, Zyadishan took a book that had just been read. I just read it for a long time, and I think this script is very suitable for the performance. What do you think? Gian and Azzy took the book and prepared to see what it was, and then he saw 3 large gold-plated characters from the Celestial Empire. Journey to the West. Chapter 353. Role confirmed. Yu and Azzy, who was frightened by the book, calmed down. Could this be the ancient theater version? But he still asked Chumashin nonchalantly, have you decided? Zyashin nodded. Of course, I think this mythological theme is very good. And didn't you give me a somersault cloud the day before yesterday? I remember it should be in this book. It is perfect for the performance. Besides, Journey to the West is popular recently. This drama should also be popular, right? Zyashin took the book in his hand and went to the library to go through the procedures for borrowing books. Yu and Azzy thought to himself, it will be this theater version. I wonder what changes will happen this time. I'm really looking forward to it. He clenched his fists. Wait for me, Bull Demon King. Let me see if you are as powerful as the legend says. After taking a deep breath, it is time to condense the 7th seal tonight. Otherwise it may not be able to catch up with this theater version. He walked out of this small place quickly, said goodbye to the Chuncheng swordsman duo, left the library, and went home to prepare to improve his strength. As expected by Yu and Azzy, Chumashin started reading Journey to the West after returning home, preparing to excerpt a passage. As for Yu and Azzy, he came to the cloud and began to frantically refine magic power. Normally, it would take 2 or 3 days to accumulate it. Now it is a special situation, so he can only overdraw a little mental power in exchange for accelerated accumulation of magic power. In order to prepare for the evening, Yu and Azzy did not even eat dinner this time. After sleeping for an hour on the cloud, he continued to refine magic power. Finally, at 10 o'clock in the evening, Yu and Azzy finally accumulated enough magic power and was ready to start carving the talisman. He looked at the mental power and magic power in his sea of consciousness and felt a little uneasy. My mental power is a little insufficient. I hope it will go smoothly this time. According to the method recorded in the book, Yu and Azzy guided the magic power to start carving the talisman. The first step of carving the talisman was still very perfect, which made him feel relieved. However, the problem brought about was that the mental power left in his soul was not enough. There was no other way, so Yu and Azzy had to ask him for help. Old man, come out and help me. The voice of the soul-devouring monument was still unhurried. You are really messing around. You dare to carve the seal when your mental power is insufficient. Even so, the body of the soul-devouring monument was still very honest and sent out an extremely pure mental power to Yu and Azzy. Then he continued to carve the 7th seal. What are you afraid of? Anyway, don't I have you as a backup? Stop talking nonsense. Using other people's mental power is always not as good as your own. You should carve your seal well. Its roar brought Azzy back to reality, and he concentrated on carving the law pattern on the seal. And he did find the disadvantage. That is, the control of mental power was not as good as before. More than 10 minutes later, Yu and Azzy, who carved the law pattern, was sweating profusely and finally completed this advancement. The mental power you gave me is really not very useful. It's like my hands are shaking all the time when I'm painting. It's so uncomfortable. You kids should be content. If I hadn't stayed in your sea of consciousness and had a connection with your mental power, your hands would have shaken even more. He waved his hand. Forget it. Anyway, judging from the results, it's actually not bad. At least the energy connection is fine. It can only be said to be so-so. Although this talisman is not as good as the previous ones, it will not affect your entry into the 4th level. After absorbing the God-given power that comes with every advancement, he stood up and prepared to go home and rest. Unexpectedly, when he stood up, a feeling of weakness suddenly came up, making him stagger a few steps before he could barely stand. What's going on? Why do I feel weak? He looked at his body, not knowing why he had such a terrifying feeling. Ling Feng appeared in front of him at the right time. Don't worry, you just practiced for a long time. You will be fine after a good rest. Hearing what he said, Yu and Azzy was relieved and used magic to teleport back to the room to rest. The next day at school, Izuki found Nobita and the others and started discussing with them about performing Journey to the West. What? Journey to the West? Great. I want to play the Monkey King Sun Wukong. This was basically the unanimous reaction of the 3 boys. They all yearned for the monkey king who could slay demons. Shizuka was a little hesitant. If I play Journey to the West, can I play Tang Samsang? After all, I don't like fighting and killing. The other few people said that they had no objection to this. After all, they didn't like to play civilians like Tang Samsang, so the matter was settled. Then it's settled. I will solve the problem of costumes as soon as possible. When can we rehearse? The others said that they could do it anytime, as long as the time was not too long and did not affect their homework. Okay, I'll go get some props this afternoon. Tomorrow is Friday, and we'll start rehearsing from tomorrow afternoon. After finalizing this matter, Izuki finally put down a stone in his heart. He has always been worried that others will not like this play and refuse to play Journey to the West. The one he is most worried about is Shizuka. But it was obvious that after the painful experience the day before yesterday afternoon, Shizuka had relaxed her requirements for the script. As long as she was not asked to play a role like the mermaid princess, she would not refuse. So from this point of view, Zyadishan should thank Nobita for his help. After school in the afternoon, Zyadishan gathered everyone together again to deal with some things. We will have a rehearsal tomorrow, so I decided to decide on everyone's role first. After saying that, he took out a small cardboard box and put the 5 small slips of paper he had already prepared in it. There are roles for the 5 of us in it, and no complaints about whoever you draw. And to be fair, I will be the last one to draw lots this time. So who will draw first? Ziofu stepped forward. Haha, is there even a need to say? Of course, I will be the first. Before he could finish his words, Fat Tiger pushed Ziofu away. Of course, I will be the first to draw. Then he reached into the box, drew out a slip of paper, and slowly spread it out. Now let me see if I'm playing the role of Sun Wukong. After opening the paper, there were 3 big words ZHUBG written on it, which made Fat Tiger's face red with anger. What? I'm actually going to play a pig. I don't accept it. I want to draw lots again. No, I'm happy with it. Yu and ZHI behind him had already put his hand on Fat Tiger's shoulder, waiting for Fat Tiger to say that he was not happy. Haha, I think Fat Tiger, you are very suitable to play this pig. After all, you look like a pig. As soon as the voice fell, 2 murderous auras locked onto him, one from Fat Tiger and the other from Yu and ZHI. It seems that I still couldn't get you to change your bad habit of talking nonsense yesterday, right? No, I didn't say anything just now. You must have heard it wrong. I'm going to draw lots soon. He hurriedly ran to the cardboard box and drew a piece of paper. The role he drew was Shammonk. Very good. Since they didn't draw Sun Wukong, then this role is reserved for me. Nobita walked forward confidently and drew his own role from the cardboard box. After opening it, Nobita collapsed instantly. What? I'm actually a passerby asking for help? My Sun Wukong. Zyadishan stepped forward to explain. Because we have a lot of scenes to play, this role will appear, so you have to bear with it. Then it was Yu and Daz's turn to draw lots. He walked over and casually drew a piece of paper. Oh, my role is actually a supporting god, which really suits me. He put away his supporting role casually, and Izuka-shan stepped forward to pick up the last piece of paper. Needless to say, everyone knows that the last one left is actually Sun Wukong, who everyone wants to play the most. It's really unpredictable. Chapter 354 Costume Issues. Okay, the draw is done. Let's start rehearsals tomorrow. Everyone silently memorized their roles and went home. Doraemon also came back from the future discount market and bought a game console that he and Nobita had agreed on. Nobita's recent performance is much better than before, so let him play it well when the time comes. The blue fat man looked at the game console and happily thought about what it would be like to play games with Nobita. But soon, he chose to put the game console back into his pocket. Not now, let's wait until tomorrow, when we have a holiday to play it. He was worried that Nobita would not do his homework because of this game, so it would be safer to leave it for the weekend. After returning home, Yu and Azzy and Demishan also started to get busy and had almost no free time. Demishan left home again to discuss the props needed for rehearsal with the school. Yu and Azzy began to practice his swordsmanship, trying to increase his strength a little to face the Bull Demon King. While he was practicing swordsmanship, he suddenly thought that there were other ways to increase his strength. Besides, it is not very useful to intensify sword training now. After all, it takes time and effort to master it. So Yu and Dazi found the phone in Zayashin's room and dialed the familiar number. Hello, is this Kodama Yoshio? I have something to ask you now. You should be free, right? Kodama Yoshio on the opposite side put down his teacup. The last time the kid said that, he almost choked to death on the water in the office. Yes, I just finished today's work. Do you want to come over now? As soon as he finished speaking, there was a burst of blind sound from the other side, and then a tiny black hole appeared in front of him. After Yu and Dazi came out, he got straight to the point. I do have something to ask you, and what I want to say may be troublesome. Kodama Yoshio asked someone to pour him a cup of tea, and signaled Yu and Dazi to say what help he needed. He took a sip of green tea and said, I just want you to help me get something that is inconvenient for me to get, and I will pay for it. Kodama Yoshio was not hypocritical and agreed immediately. Okay, what do you want? I will do my best for you within my ability. Not long after, Zayashin came back home and wanted to discuss something with him. The school's props group doesn't have the things needed for Journey to the West, so I can only borrow them from the props store outside. Ian and Dazi nodded to show his understanding. So, you want to ask me for some money to borrow props, right? Zayashin was a little embarrassed when he mentioned this matter. After all, this was not an expense that Dazi should bear. He casually took out a few 10,000 yuan bills. If it's not enough, come back to me again. Thank you for your trouble. Zayashin took the money, thanked him and ran out to borrow props again. Ian and Dazi also breathed a sigh of relief. He had just finished talking to them and almost didn't come back. It will take an hour. I'll find a reason to go out later. Thinking of this, his mental power began to search carefully in this room to see what he needed to buy. The dog food is almost finished. Feed it the rest and then go out to buy some. Pour the dog food into the white dog's food bowl, and then Yu and Dazi went out to buy dog food. Following his memory, Chumashin came to the prop store in the town, and the owner of the store was waiting for business to come. A customer is coming. Kit, you are borrowing props for the school's welcome party, right? Zayashin touched his head. Boss, how do you know I'm borrowing props for the welcome party? Haha, several waves of people have come to borrow props just now, so I asked. The store owner seemed happier, because this is the best time for his business during this period. Let's not discuss this irrelevant topic. What props do you want? I may have already lent them out. Izuki took out his notebook. He wanted to see the costumes needed for the scenes. I want the costumes of the 4-person group in Journey to the West, as well as a set of coarse cloth clothes of ancient civilians, and a red veil. The boss quickly returned to the room and found the things needed for the performance. You are lucky. Journey to the West was popular some time ago, so I borrowed 2 sets of clothes back. I borrowed 1 set before, and there is just 1 set left here. Here, the 6 clothes and weapons you need. Come forward and count them to see if there are any damages. Zayashin nodded and looked at these things carefully. They were almost all new and the quality was good. Okay, these things are of good quality. How much does it cost to borrow them? The boss took out a calculator. 1 set of clothes is 1,400 yen per week. Weapons are 900 yen per week. Red veils are 500 yen. And the cost is 11,100 yuan. Izuki handed over 20,000 yuan. This price is a bit expensive, but still within an acceptable range. Here, this is your change of 8,900 yuan. Be careful on your way back, don't damage it. The boss carefully put the things in a box and handed it to Zayashin at the door. When Chumashin returned home, he saw that Yu and Dazi had already gone out, so he put his things away. More than 10 minutes later, Yu and Dazi returned to the room and immediately saw the pile of costumes. Yinkei, have you borrowed the things? How much did you spend in total? Chumashin returned the remaining nearly 30,000 yuan to Dazi, a total of 11,100 yuan. The rest is all here. There are 6 sets of costumes here, which is indeed enough for several people. Yinkei, have you forgotten to borrow the villain's clothes? Why are they all clothes of the main actors? Hearing him say that, Chumashin sighed helplessly. I have no choice. After all, there are only a few people acting now. And as he was also a little distressed, then what about the remaining roles? Without villains, there will be nothing to watch. Ziadishan handed the script to Daisuke. You are the only one who will make a cameo appearance as these villains. I believe you can do it. He took the notebook and looked at all the villains that appeared on it. Let me see. Bull Demon King, Princess Iron Fan, Weasel, Golden Horn and Silver Horn, Golden Winged Dapping. Then he turned a few pages, on which were densely packed lists of other characters that had appeared. Tathagata Buddha, Guanyin, Land God. Playing so many roles. Do you want to tar me to death? Closing the notebook with the script, and as he stared at Chumushin with dead fish eyes. But if there are no villain roles, only you have the ability to play multiple roles. Taking the book over, Ziadishan wrote something on it, and prepared to revise it. It's impossible. With so many scenes, it's impossible to finish in 10 minutes, right? We have a time limit. Ziadishan had to admit, you are right, then I might as well just leave the Flame Mountain scene. If there is only the scene where the three apprentices meet and the Flame Mountain meets the Bull Demon King, the time should be just right. Seeing that he had crossed out most of the roles, and as he beside him also breathed a sigh of relief, but he still had to play multiple roles. But this won't work either. I want those two guys to come together to cause trouble. We can't let them get away with it. After saying that, and as he turned around and left Ziadishan's house and went to Jailisuka's place. At Jailisuka's house, he put down his book and looked at and Daisuke. What did you say? You want me to play the Bull Demon King? It's not impossible, but is Princess Iron Fan pretty? Chapter 355 New Boss. and Daisuke wiped a cold sweat. This guy's first reaction after hearing the news was really manly. Don't worry, Princess Iron Fan is very beautiful. I guarantee she will suit your taste. After giving him an affirmative look, Jailisuka readily agreed to this matter. After persuading Jailisuka, and Daisuke walked towards the house where Lizanayu and the others were. Is Lizanayu here? I have something I want to ask you to help me with. Lizanayu's father soon appeared in front of him. He is doing his homework now. Why don't you come back later? and Daisuke glanced at him casually. Judging from his soul fluctuations, this guy's definitely lying. So he simply ignored the uncle and walked into the house directly. Strange. Why did this door suddenly open by itself? Hey, don't ignore me, bastard. The uncle rushed over and grabbed his hand, not wanting him to go in. But this made him even more curious. What shameful things was Lizanayu doing? So he dragged the uncle on the ground, treating him as if he didn't exist from the beginning. When he came to Lizanayu's bedroom, he was ready to break in from here with his strength advantage. But then he thought, he is a well-educated and good child, how can he be so rude? So and Daisuke started knocking on the door. Lizanayu, are you there? Come and open the door for me. The uncle was so scared that he couldn't take care of himself. Don't knock, this wall is about to collapse. He saw the dust falling from the roof, and his heart trembled with the wall. Seeing that and Daisuke was so persistent, he had to take out the key. Okay, I'll open the door for you, but you are not allowed to laugh for a while. and Daisuke finally took a step back. That's right, you have to lie to me. I can see it. The uncle opened the door, and inside was a child in a skirt, holding a trembling ghost. Seeing this, and Daisuke walked in with a weird smile. Hey, Lizanayu, what are you doing? A love story between a human and a ghost. Also, why are you wearing a skirt and hugging the ghost of a little boy? The uncle explained to him from behind. We found the soul of this little boy here, and because this place is haunted, the rent is very cheap. But this little boy doesn't know anything and hasn't hurt anyone, so we want to find a way to fulfill his wish and let him reincarnate on his own initiative. However, the little boy's wish is to have a sister, so Ziadishan, you are not allowed to laugh, or I will fight you to the death. And as he walked in front of Lizanayu, and they both looked a little nervous. Can you not tell anyone that I'm wearing a skirt? And as he put his arms around his neck, don't worry, it's just women's clothing. K likes it very much too. I will never discriminate against you. The uncle at the back roared, asshole, don't ignore me again. Believe it or not, I will fight you to the death. Lizanayu was so moved that his eyes were filled with tears. At the critical moment, his father was still reliable. Hearing the roar behind him, Yu and Dazi looked back at him and said with a smile, "Go wherever you want to stay." For this threatening sentence, the uncle would never compromise. "You told me to go wherever I want to stay, but I won't. I want to stay by the stove." After saying that, he ran to the stove and stretched out his hands to warm himself, not caring about Lee Zinayu's life or death. "Okay, let's get down to business. We are going to play Sun Wukong fighting the Bull Demon King at the welcome party. I want you to play the role of Princess Fan. What do you think?" Hearing that he had to wear women's clothes in front of the whole school, he immediately prepared to refuse. For something like this, At this point, Yu and Dazi suddenly put his face in front of him. "If you refuse, I will be very sad. For something like this, of course I'm very happy. It is my honor to contribute to the class." "Okay, I was right about you." Yu and Dazi reached out and patted his shoulder hard. "I knew you have always been very team-spirited and willing to sacrifice for the class. Then this matter is settled. I'm going to prepare the tools now. Remember to come to the rehearsal tomorrow." After saying that, Yu and Dazi turned around and left their warm little home. After solving the problem of the two actors, the next thing to do was to solve their costume problem. It was impossible for them to wear school uniforms on stage, and it was impossible to lend them his dark star cape. So he had to go to the only prop store in the town and borrow the costumes they needed for the stage. "Dazi, why did you bring back 2 more costumes? Is there anyone else who wants to participate?" He nodded. "Yes, I just persuaded Lee Zinayu and Shizuka, and they agreed to play the Bull Demon King and his wife." Hearing this good news, Zyashin stood up from her seat and began to organize the props needed for tomorrow's performance with him. The borrowed costumes and weapons were sorted, and then all were put into Yu and Daz's cloak space, waiting for tomorrow's rehearsal. He opened the window and jumped out, lying on the roof of the 2nd floor and looking up at the blue sky. "If it goes as expected, tomorrow will be the official opening of the movie Journey to the West. I wonder if I can still see such a beautiful sky here in this demonized world." He adjusted his mood on the roof and prepared for the battle that might come tomorrow. It was not Yu and Daz's impulse to bring them in, but he had to do it. After all, for now, the strength of the Bull Demon King is unknown, and he has a bunch of elite soldiers under his command. He must find any power that can be used. Time flies, and soon it is Friday morning when school is about to end. The teacher put away the Chinese textbooks. "Everyone, remember to go back and do your homework. Don't delay your studies." "Okay, class is over." The students were excited at this moment. Everyone picked up their school bags and rushed out of the classroom to go home for dinner. Nobita and his friends found Zyashin and asked about the script and costumes. "Don't worry, everything is ready. See you at school at 2 p.m. Izuku handed them his handwritten script and asked them to familiarize themselves with it after they went back. Then he walked to Yu and Dazi and prepared to go to dinner with him. "What are you eating for lunch today? Are you going to eat the same takoyaki as before?" Yu and Dazi thought he would agree to it as before, but he had a different opinion this time. "No, do you remember the store called Ichiraku Ramen on the street? Let's go there to eat." Speaking of this store, his mind instantly recalled the experience of being overturned by Nobita and Doraemon when he ate noodles last time. "Of course I remember. What happened in this store is still fresh in my memory." As they walked towards the ramen shop, they talked about the Bull Demon King script. "By the way, what are you going to do when we perform the part about the Flame Mountain? Are you going to find a piece of red cloth as the background?" Seeing him telling such a boring joke, Izuku couldn't help laughing. "Don't make such jokes. Aren't you a magician? Isn't it easy to make a little flame?" It's easy to say, but it's still very risky to make a little flame on the stage. Zyashin reached out and patted Daz's shoulder. "So only you can do this. I trust you very much." He shrugged helplessly and had to agree to this. Although playing with fire on the stage is indeed dangerous, it is not completely impossible. Well, for the sake of the effect of our stage play, just this once. By the way, we seem to have reached our destination. Yu and Dazi and Izuku stood in place, looking up at the sign in the sky, on which was written Ichiraku Ramen. Chapter 356 Guest Appearance. The two walked into Ichiraku Ramen shop together. The uncle, who looked to be in his 40s or 50s, was still chatting with the guests in a friendly manner. "Hey, to kids, what do you want to eat? Our ramen is very delicious." Sitting opposite the uncle, they ordered a bowl of signature ramen and began a long wait. Although Yu and Dazi had been here before, he was still a little uncomfortable, as if he had traveled to the world of Naruto with others. Speaking of this, I suddenly remembered the Sharingan I met in Hokkaido before. He sat in his seat and thought more and more strangely. This world seemed to be more than just the world of the blue fat man. In addition, it seemed that even Conan had made a cameo appearance in this world. Fog? It's just that there is no Halo or the god of death. Not long after, the boss put 2 bowls of ramen in front of them. 2 servings of signature ramen. Please taste it. The side dishes here are quite rich. Seaweed, heartwarming eggs, Chinese cabbage, Naruto rolls and plum meat, which look appetizing. Coupled with a rich pork bone soup, the wafting fragrance and the exquisite appearance made Yu and Dazi couldn't help but pick up his chopsticks and eat. Just when he was eating happily, the hand-beating uncle suddenly called his assistant. "Naruto, come and help quickly, I'm almost overwhelmed." He was frightened, and a mouthful of noodles got stuck in his trachea. He kept coughing while sitting. Did he hear it wrong? Soon, a little boy of 13 or 14 years old came over and started to help the hand-beating uncle knead the noodles. After finally recovering from the cough, Yu and Dazi quickly drank a mouthful of noodle soup to calm down. Did he really travel through time again? When Naruto was not so busy, Yu and Dazi found an opportunity to talk to him. "Naruto, let me ask you a question. Do you have a friend named Sasuke?" Naruto was drinking water during the break. He was stunned when he heard his question. "How do you know? But he is not my friend. He just knows how to oppose me all day long." Yu and Dazi was silent for a while and suddenly asked, "Then whose first kiss was yours?" "Huh? This?" Naruto was at a loss for words. Should he tell the truth? But they just met for the first time. Or tell him that his first kiss is still there? But lying is not so good. Seeing him so entangled, Yu and Dazi sat back in his seat and then stared at Naruto the whole time, which made him feel uncomfortable. While watching, Yu and Dazi held his chin with his hand and thought, no matter how you look at it, this guy is an ordinary person. Is it really just me who is overthinking this time? Zyadishan also put down his chopsticks at this time, and he also finished the big bowl of noodles. "Okay Dazi, it's almost time for us to go back to school. We have to start rehearsal later." Seeing that Demushan had finished eating, he had no reason to stay here. So Yu and Dazi picked up his school bag. "Okay, Uncle Shouder, your noodles are delicious. Thank you for the hospitality." The two returned to school without stopping and began to prepare for the performance before rehearsal. "Yinkei, give me your school bag." Picking up the school bags of the two, Yu and Dazi teleported back home and put down this burden. Zyadishan stayed in the classroom and began to check whether there were books in the drawers of each classmate. It seems that everyone has moved their books back, which saves me a lot of trouble. His mental power began to surge, and the tables around him seemed to be pushed by someone and moved backwards to the corner of the wall. After clearing the obstacles, a large open space appeared in front of the classroom. At this time, Yu and Dazi also came to the classroom from home and was quite satisfied with the situation here. Zyadishan saw Dazi coming back, so she came over and pulled him to the prop room. "You are back at the right time. Let's go to the school's prop room to borrow some props." The scene has not been set up yet. The two came to the prop room behind the auditorium. At this time, there were many people who came to borrow props for rehearsal, and they lined up outside the room. Yu and Dazi touched his head. "I thought we came early enough, but I didn't expect that someone came earlier. Don't complain here. If you come later, maybe all the props have been borrowed." When they moved the things they needed back to the classroom, they found that Lisa Nayu was already waiting for them in the classroom. Seeing these two people coming back, Lisa Nayu's heart, which had finally been put down, was hanging again. He wanted to take this opportunity to run away to avoid the ending of being forced to dress up as a woman. "Hey, Lisa Nayu, I didn't expect you to come so early. Are you impatient?" Seeing his nervous look, Yu and Dazi couldn't help but tease him. Zyadishan was confused because he didn't know who Lisa Nayu was playing, so he couldn't understand his feelings. Putting the props on the ground, Yu and Azzy took out the costume box that he had sorted yesterday and picked out the clothes of Princess Fan. Here, this is your costume. There is no one in the next classroom, you can go there to change clothes. He took the Princess Fan suit very reluctantly and then left the place to change clothes. The two of them were here to set up the cardboard of the mountain, which was used to make the 5-element mountain to save the monkey in the first scene. Not long after, Lizanayu entered the classroom wearing a green gauze, and Chumashin was stunned. Lizanayu, why are you playing Princess Fan? Isn't this a woman? Lizanayu nodded with tears in his eyes. Finally, there was a normal person. Chumashin wanted him to give up this role, but how could Yu and Azzy let him escape so easily? So he stretched out his hand to stop Zyashin. It's okay, Lizanayu begged me to let him play this role. Lizanayu said he was shocked. You guy have no shame? It was you who threatened me, right? Chumashin believed it. Why? Does he like to wear this kind of girl's clothes? Yes, when I went to his house yesterday, he was wearing a light blue dress. Very beautiful. Asshole, didn't you promise yesterday that you would never tell anyone? I want to die with you. Looking at Lizanayu rushing towards him madly, Yu and Azzy smiled calmly and stretched out a hand to touch his forehead. Hearing Lizanayu say this, Chumashin knew that this was true. But whether Lizanayu really wanted to play this role is still debatable. Oh, by the way, he specifically told me yesterday to give him long flowing hair, and now I will fulfill his wish. Yu and Azzy immediately urged his magic power to grow hair for him, and Lizanayu soon changed from a cute boy with short hair to a beautiful girl with long hair down to her waist. When he was finally tired, he sat in his seat and breathed heavily to avoid being attacked by anger. He couldn't fight, and he couldn't run away. Could he really only dress up as a woman in front of all the teachers and students in the school? Just as he was struggling, Shizuka had already arrived at the battlefield. When he met him, he found Azzy. Hey you and Azzy, didn't you say yesterday that my partner is a super beautiful girl? Where is she now? Shizuka walked into the classroom and saw Lizanayu sulking in her seat. Shizuka, who was originally a bit unruly, changed his appearance in an instant and knelt on one knee in front of Lizanayu. Excuse me, beautiful lady, are you my partner, Princess Fan? Seeing how enthusiastic he was, Lizanayu suddenly didn't know what to do and sat in a daze. Shizuka took the opportunity to take Lizanayu's hand and kissed her with the excuse of Western etiquette. Yu and Azzy and Imushin didn't know what to say next, so they just watched them quietly. Yunkei, when do you think we should tell Shizuka the truth? I think we should wait until the performance is over, otherwise I'm worried that he will quit. After reaching an agreement, Yu and Azzy silently took out his camera and took a photo of them. Chapter 357 3 Men, 1 Show. Lizanayu finally came to his senses and quickly pulled away his hand that was held by Shizuka. Sorry, we are just acting partners, don't think too much. Shizuka didn't care, turned around and asked Yu and Azzy for his Bull Demon King costume and went to the next classroom to change clothes. Fat Tiger and Sunia also came to the classroom and saw the long-haired lady. Their eyes instantly turned into hearts, and they ran to him to praise him for his beauty. Compared with Shizuka, who I usually see, it is obvious that the lady sitting here is much more beautiful. The most important thing is that this lady's long hair makes her look more gentle and lovely, and Shizuka's short hair makes her feel more lively, and they still prefer this quiet type of lady. I wonder what your name is, miss. Can you leave your phone number? Holding a rose that he didn't know where he took out, Sunia asked Lizanayu questions with an intoxicated look. In response, Lizanayu could only smile bitterly and pushed his rose back. Sunia wanted to say something more, but was interrupted by Fat Tiger next to him. Can't you see that she is not happy? If you harass her again next to her, I will send you to the hospital. Do you believe it? After saying that, Fat Tiger kicked Sunia aside and took his place. If you want to find a man, you should find a manly one. No one here is more manly than me. Lizanayu covered his nose helplessly. Can you take a shower before you talk? Go play. Fat Tiger, who was ruthlessly rejected, turned into a statue. Sunia next to him hurriedly came up and dragged him away. Dazi and Zyashin were watching in front of the classroom, and they couldn't help but nod their heads repeatedly. I didn't expect Lee Zinayu's popularity in women's clothing to be so high. We must let him wear it more in the future. Dekishin also agreed with his point of view. That's right. But I'm more curious about what will happen if they know the truth. Just as the two were discussing how things would develop, Jili Saka, who had changed into costumes, came back. He was originally preparing to come here to act happily, but as soon as he entered the door, he saw two people who didn't know how to live or die teasing his wife. And most importantly, this Iron Fan princess looked very reluctant, and two flies kept flying around her. He didn't want to play this role in the first place. If it wasn't for acting with this young lady, he wouldn't want to come. So he was angry. Fat Tiger and Zaofu, you two bastards, stay away from my wife, or I will beat you to death. Shizuka was very powerful in his rage, which scared the two of them. But Fat Tiger, who didn't know Shizuka's background, was also angry. What did you say just now? Who is your wife? Has this lady admitted it? The two were on the verge of a fight, and the atmosphere between the two sides was extremely solemn, and it seemed that they were about to fight. Zyashin wanted to go up to persuade them to stop fighting, but was stopped by Yu and Dazi next to him. Go change your clothes first, and leave the rough work of mediating the fight to me. I will definitely make them live in peace. Turning his head to look at him, Chumushin helplessly covered his forehead. If you weren't eating melon seeds there now, maybe I could try to trust you. Seeing that his thoughts were exposed, Yu and Dazi put down the melon seeds in his hand, threw the Monkey King costume on his face, and then pushed him out the door. Fat Tiger pointed at the mask on Shizuka's head. You can't even see your face, and you still expect this young lady to like you? Zaofu chimed in. That's right. Maybe you are actually an ugly freak, so you play the role of Bull Demon King. Hearing others say that he is ugly, Shizuka was angry at first, and then quickly calmed down. So what? Anyway, she plays a role of Princess Ainfan, the legitimate wife of my Bull Demon King. Right, wife. Lee Zinayu's face completely darkened, and his patience was about to reach the limit. When the three continued to quarrel, Lee Zinayu finally stood up. He decided not to endure it anymore. He raised his hand and hit Fat Tiger and Shizuka on the head with all his strength. Stop it, you two. I'm just here to act. His strength was far beyond that of an ordinary person, so Fat Tiger was knocked unconscious by his punch. Shizuka just lowered his head to slow down, and looked at Lee Zinayu again with fire in his eyes. Yu and Dazi couldn't help but grab a handful of melon seeds and put them in his mouth. Is it the most exciting part? Shizuka stretched out his hand and pressed it against the wall, and his head began to get infinitely close to the young lady in his eyes. Lee Zinayu's heart began to beat wildly. Could it be that he was angry because of what happened just now? When he began to feel uneasy, Shizuka finally spoke. This lady, Yu and Dazi next to him even forgot about grabbing melon seeds and was concentrating on watching the follow-up of the two of them. It was so exciting. Miss, you are still full of feminine charm when you beat people. I like it so much. TSK. Yu and Dazi swallowed the melon seeds unwillingly. He had been looking forward to it for a long time, and you showed me this? I thought it was going to be the main film. Just when Yu and Dazi thought the drama was about to end, a voice full of justice came from outside the door. Stop it. Everyone turned their eyes to the door and found that the person who tried to stop Shizuka was Nobita. Don't you see that she is very unhappy? Let the girl go, Nobita said as he walked to Shizuka's side and stretched out his hand to push him away. I will never let you touch a hair on her. At this time, the last Shizuka also arrived in the classroom at this time and saw this scene in the classroom. I didn't expect Nobita to be so brave. He dared to stand up for a girl. He is very courageous. She silently raised her evaluation of Nobita by a level and then continued to watch the show. Anyway, even if they really fought, there was Yu and Dazi next to them to support them, so it was not a big problem. Fat Tiger also woke up, and then he saw Nobita standing in front of his goddess. Damn Nobita, you dare to touch my goddess. Let me see how I will deal with you. Shizuka rushed forward, and the three people were about to engage in a fierce confrontation. At this moment, three fists landed accurately on the heads of three people. The owners of these fists were Yu and Dazuki, D-Mushin and Lee Zinayu. Yu and Dazuki moved his hands. It's enough to make a fuss, but it's not okay to hit. Since everyone has arrived as agreed, let's start rehearsing. The three of them stood up, covering their heads, and looked at each other unwillingly, thinking to themselves, I'll let you go this time. Yu and Dazuki walked to the side of the cardboard box. This is Fat Tiger's Sunia costume, this is Nobita's costume, and Shizuka. He distributed their respective costumes, and then everyone went to the classroom next door to change clothes one after another. Taking this opportunity, he walked to the side of Lee Zinayu. How is it? It feels good to be liked by so many people, right? Lee Zinayu hated him so much that he gnashed his teeth and wanted to rush over and tear Yu and Dazuki into pieces. But he also knew that the fighting ability of the man in front of him was not at the same level as his. After all, Taoist priests are not good at dealing with living things, and many spells are not developed to deal with living things. HMPH, wait, I will learn all the spells for fighting with people after I go back, and then I will cast a spell on you every day. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 358 Rehearsal. Suddenly, Lee Zinayu thought that, since he couldn't beat him, it was still easy to take revenge on him. So he said to Yu and Dazuki with a smirk on his face, just wait and see how I deal with you. Then he went over and pulled Shizuka's clothes. Yu and Dazuki took the opportunity to bully me just now. It's really too much. Shizuka was a young man with blood, and he didn't control his emotions very well, so he was instantly ignited with anger. Yu and Dazuki, I really didn't expect you to be such a despicable villain. I really misjudged you. Yu and Dazuki was shocked by this vicious plan. Is this the legendary killing 1000 enemies and losing 10,000 of your own? If you say this, aren't you admitting that you are a girl in disguise? It turns out that you really like women's clothing. After being stunned for a moment, he quickly defended himself. No, it's just a misunderstanding. I can't do this at all. Then he looked at Dekisugi. Please say something for me. I'm really wronged. Zyashin took 2 steps back. Don't talk nonsense. When did I know you? At this time, his eyes were full of the word pervert, and he waved his hand to let Dazuki stay away from him. Even Dekisugi doesn't believe you. It seems that you have really changed. Today, let me, Shizuka, get rid of the harm for the people. And as he stretched out his hand to signal him to stop, Shizuka, you have to calm down. This is all a misunderstanding. With red eyes, he didn't listen to Yu and Dazuki's words at all, jumped up and kicked him with the Leo kick. Seeing that Shizuka was no longer reasonable, Yu and Dazuki was not afraid to fight him. He dodged his flying kick sideways, but seeing that Shizuka was about to hit the prop wooden board, he quickly punched him in the stomach and knocked him away. I was scared to death. If I had broken the props at the back, I don't know how much money I would have to pay. The onlookers, hey, you seem to be focusing on something wrong, right? He shook his hands, and Yu and Dazuki went over to carry Shizuka back and put him on the ground. How is it? Have you calmed down? He sat on the ground and nodded in a daze and then fainted. Finally, Nobita had changed his clothes and returned to the classroom, and they began to prepare for the rehearsal of the first act. Let me see. The first act is the plot of Tang Monk saving Sun Wukong. Please take your seats, all the actors who are going to appear. Nobita walked to Yu and Dazuki, who was temporarily replacing the screenwriter, and asked him which act his play was in. Yu and Dazuki flipped through the script written by Zyashin and began to look for Nobita's name. Your play is in the 4th act, and you need to appear as a helper. Seeing that he had no idea how long it would take for his turn, he simply found a chair and fell asleep in a daze. Doraemon drank the green tea in the room, then took out his newly bought game console. I wanted to play with Nobita this afternoon, but he has to go to rehearsal, so let me play alone first. Looking at the place where the tapes were placed, Doraemon took out another stack of game tapes and prepared to go over and play them. Let me see what games there are. This is it, the knight who saves the princess. The reward is actually a kiss from the princess. Seeing this reward, the blue fat man blushed and put the tape into the game console. After a few seconds, the game console was ready and the round safety cover rose, opening the entrance to the game. Doraemon jumped in without saying a word. Princess, wait for me to save you. After everyone performed the general process, it was the turn of Nobita, a passerby, to go on stage. Originally thought that he would come to the stage quickly, but this guy sat below and had no intention of moving at all. In order to prevent him from ruining the atmosphere of the rehearsal, Yu and Daisy had to personally go down and invite him up. Nobita, don't sleep anymore. It's your turn to perform. Yu and Daisy pushed Nobita's shoulders hard, but he slept soundly and refused to wake up. Unable to bear it any longer, he lifted him up and shouted with all his strength, "Nobita, the world is ending." Under Yu and Daisy's extremely powerful lion roar, Nobita finally broke out of the dream of Journey to the West. But he obviously didn't wake up completely because he covered the sunlight with his hands and made the classic monkey action. Sun Wukong, I'm here. What do you mean the end of the world? Don't worry, as long as Sun Wukong, am here, the world will not be destroyed. Seeing him so immature, the others all laughed beside him. Yu and Daisy quickly put him down. Stop making trouble, you are just an ordinary person. Do you still want to play Sun Wukong? It's your turn to perform. After listening to everyone's words, Nobita finally woke up completely and came to the stage wearing a coarse cloth. Then he touched his head in confusion. What should I do now? This time, no one laughed. There was more helplessness in their eyes. Didn't Xiaoshan give you the script yesterday? What did you do when you went back? It was just a complaint, but Nobita began to count what he did seriously. Eating, sleeping, doing homework, watching TV, playing with Doraemon. There should be nothing else. Seeing this, Yu and Daisy was shocked and took a few steps back. He sat down and took a break, holding his chest. You should have the script yourself. Take it out and take a look. Just a few actions and a few words. Nobita took out the note given to him yesterday and read it on the stage. Shizuka and Lee Zinai were holding their foreheads below. They felt that they had a migraine. The master and apprentice quartet also sighed helplessly, waiting for Nobita to finish his part. Soon he put down the script. Okay, I remember. Shall we start this part of the play now? Yu and Daisy nodded. Yes, it's now. Yinkei, you guys get ready and start this part immediately. Everyone quickly got into the mood, entered from the side, and slowly walked to the center of the stage, and Nobita and in front of them, and began to introduce the situation here. This is the Flame Mountain, which started burning because of the sky fire 500 years ago. To put out the fire, you need the banana fan in the hand of Princess Iron Fan. Sun Wukong, played by Izuki, immediately stepped forward. Isn't this fire the furnace fire of Taishang Laojin? I'm going to find him to argue. After saying that, Sun Wukong left the venue from the left, and the others left from the right. Next was Yu and Daz's part. He came in from outside the classroom, and instantly turned into a white-haired old man. According to common sense, he should now add cloud and fog special effects to the stage, to make it look like a fairy palace. But there is no need to do it so finely now, and Yu and Daz he also needs to save magic power to deal with the Bull Demon King. So he had to simply explain the reasons for the formation of the Flaming Mountain on the simple stage, and then let Sun Wukong go down to the mortal world by himself. Chapter 359 The Truth. Next, Sun Wukong went to ask Princess Iron Fan to borrow the palm leaf fan, which then aroused the dissatisfaction of the Bull Demon King. There was no way. After all, his wife was bullied, so he would naturally feel unhappy. So the Bull Demon King personally found Sun Wukong and his group to collect the debt. You rascal, you harmed my red boy back then, and now you harm my wife. Do you still have a brother in your heart? Yu and Dazuki, who was supervising below, immediately opened the script, and always felt that the few words written by Chumushin seemed to be very ambiguous. Fat Tiger finally found an opportunity to perform, and immediately jumped forward to add to his own drama. So what? Isn't it just Princess Iron Fan? We didn't do anything to her. Hearing that Fat Tiger still wanted to do something to Princess Ainfan, Shizuka was also unhappy. Then come and fight a few moves, if you have the guts. Fat Tiger also raised his 9-toothed rake. You guy, don't think I'm afraid of you, just because you are good at homework. The two of them had a civil war because of Lee Zinayu again, and Yu and Dazi couldn't help but twitch his eyes. Princess Ainfan is a man. Why would she do such a thing? That would bring disaster to the country and the people. She is really blinded by her own greed. On the stage, even if Fat Tiger is very strong, he can never be a match for Shizuka. But Shizuka was worried about hurting him, so she was always showing mercy. In this way, the two of them fought back and forth on the stage, causing Yu and Dazi next to them to take out the melon seeds again. Shizuka and Lee Zinayu hurriedly went up to pull the two of them apart and told them not to fight. Fat Tiger took a few steps back. I didn't expect that you, a dead cow, can still fight. Then Fat Tiger pulled up Demotion. See, only I can compete with the Bull Demon King, and I'm the most suitable person to play the Monkey King. The four people present suddenly curled their lips together. This guy really had a narrow view of the world and was too lazy to bother with him. Shizuka couldn't stand it anymore. After all, he had let him go so many moves just now, and he didn't even notice it at all. So Shizuka gave him a thumbs down and said, "Stop it, I don't dare to use force when fighting against an opponent like you." Others also started to argue about roles. Everyone wanted to play Sun Wukong and didn't want to play a supporting role. Finally, Nobita stood up and said, "Stop arguing. Shouldn't we find someone who looks most like the historical Sun Wukong to play the role?" Everyone was stunned for a while after hearing what Nobita said, and then laughed again. They now suspected that Nobita was here to make people laugh and then replace the main actor. In the end, it was Shizuka who kindly reminded him, "Nobita, Sun Wukong is fictional and does not exist at all." Who knew that? Nobita walked in front of everyone and said, "No, I believe that the historical Sun Wukong must have existed. And if it really looks like me, then I should play the role of Sun Wukong." Seeing that Nobita was suddenly so serious, everyone else focused their attention on Xiaoshin. After all, the current bet involves Xiaoshin, so it must be approved by him. After hesitating for a while, Xiaoshin finally nodded and agreed. "No problem, if you can prove this, I will agree to let you play it." Because Izuki is now a little curious about whether the character of Sun Wukong actually existed in history. If what Nobita said is true, then there is no problem in giving this role to him. Now he has supernatural powers, magicians and Taoist priests around him, so he began to doubt the historical legends. Even a gang, who is said to have cut off the head of Shuten Doji, can exist, so it is actually possible for another stone monkey to appear, right? Very good, I will go back and prove it to you now. Just wait to hand over the role of Sun Wukong. After that, Nobita was ready to go home and use the time machine to verify the truth of what he said. But Sunia suddenly called him. "Wait a minute, Nobita, I have something to tell you." And as he looked at Sunia with interest, wanting to hear what kind of hurtful words this guy could say. Anyway, with his personality, it is estimated that he can't say anything good at this time. If you find a monkey and tell us that you look alike, we won't agree to your request. Amidst everyone's laughter, Dakshin rushed out of the classroom in a huff, ready to prove his innocence. Seeing that Dakshin had already left the classroom, everyone turned their attention to the two main people in charge, Dazi and Xiaoshin. And Dazi took a sip of water from his cup and said, "Everyone, go away. I'll keep your clothes with you for now." Xiaoshin nodded. "We've almost finished rehearsing today. Remember to familiarize yourself with your lines when you go back." When everyone was about to leave the classroom and go home, and as he suddenly approached Fat Tiger, "Remember, kid, all roles are decided by drawing lots. Don't complain." Seeing that he had come to him in person, Fat Tiger could only nod and agree, even if he was unwilling. "I know. I'll act well." After the irrelevant people left, there were only 4 of them in the classroom. Lee Zinayu and Shizuka had already gone to the next room to change into their usual clothes, waiting for Yu and Dazi to tell them why they stayed. Let's deal with the first thing first. Junfei, shave his hair. Xiaoshin nodded and released his mental power to prepare to cut Lee Zinayu's hair. But Shizuka, who didn't know what he was doing, suddenly blocked Lee Zinayu. "I won't let you touch a hair of hers." Demission suppressed his smile and reminded him, "Get out of the way first, you will know why after we finish cutting her hair." Shizuka was forced to move aside under the combined intimidation of the two of them. As the long hair fell to the ground, Shizuka finally recognized this familiar face. But he still pointed at Lee Zinayu, holding a glimmer of fantasy. You really are." They shrugged helplessly, which was regarded as all tacitly agreeing to this. Shizuka was hit so hard at this moment that his knees went weak and he knelt directly on the ground. "I didn't expect that my most beautiful first love would be a boy." Then he vented his resentment on me, walked over and grabbed Yu and as his collar. "Didn't you say that my partner is a beautiful lady?" Unexpectedly, Yu and as he retorted, "I only said that your partner is beautiful, and I never said that your partner is a woman." Shizuka thought about it carefully and found that this guy seemed to have just said that his partner was beautiful and there was no guarantee that she was a woman. Now when he thought about how he had just protected Lee Zinayu and he was acting coquettishly in his arms, he suddenly felt, "I don't care. Anyway, if you want me to act, at least I have to be like that just now. Otherwise, I won't do it." Although it was a bit horrifying after knowing the truth. To be honest, Lee Zinayu did look pretty good just now. Yu and Dazi pushed Shizuka away and said, "I know. He will still have long hair in tomorrow's scene." Then he straightened his collar and coughed twice to clear his throat. "Okay, let's talk about business now. This is a big deal that concerns the direction of the world." Chapter 360. Back to the past. The three of them came to Dekisugi's house, waiting for Yu and Dazi to talk about the matter that was related to the changes in the world. "I foresaw a catastrophe last night. The whole world was tampered with, and mankind was defeated." After Yu and Dazi said this calmly, the three people next to him were suddenly stunned. After a long time, they came to their senses and started shouting, "Why didn't you say it earlier? That's right, you still have the mood to rehearse a drama at this time. Are you tired of living?" While they were exploding, Yu and Dazi picked up a cup of tea that had just been served and drank it, waiting for them to calm down. After a few minutes, they finally got rid of this heavy news and looked at Yu and Dazi, who was still drinking tea. Xiaoshan walked up and took his teacup. "Is what you just said true? This is not a joke." The other two were also nervously waiting for his news, wanting to know whether this terrifying situation was true. Yu and Dazi said the words they didn't want to hear the most in a leisurely manner. "Yes, what I saw will definitely happen, and it will happen soon." Shizuka rushed over and grabbed his collar. "Then why are you still so leisurely now? Isn't the end of the world coming soon?" He opened his hand and adjusted his collar. "I just said that mankind is about to be wiped out. I didn't say we will die here, so why are you in such a hurry?" The three of them were all confused at this time. They didn't understand what Yu and Dazi was saying at all. Did they no longer belong to human beings? Then he used levitation to put chairs behind the people present and let them sit on them and talk slowly. "We really can't avoid the occurrence of disasters, but don't be too anxious. This can be saved." After hearing what he said, these people finally regained some reason and began to think about what terrible things would happen. "So what did you foresee that made you so sure that the world would undergo a drastic change?" The whole world was shrouded in fog, and bats representing disasters were flying in the air. And the people we are familiar with grew horns one after another and became what we call monsters. Everyone sorted out what he had just said, but they were still confused and had no clue. "I know you don't know what will happen, and we can't stop it now." After taking a sip of tea, he continued the lie he was telling now, almost ready to fight the Bull Demon King. "But in the future I foresaw there is a powerful monster. If we defeat it, the world will return to normal." Lee Zinayu still couldn't believe it. "If it is a monster that can change the world, it shouldn't be something we can defeat, right?" The others also fell into deep thought, because the battle I was talking about didn't seem to have any possibility of winning. "Don't worry, there is always a way. Instead of worrying now, you might as well calm down and prepare for the next battle." Yu and Dazi was still so unhurried. After all, he knew very well how things would develop next. Zion suddenly raised his head. So how long will it take for the disaster you foresaw to begin? Hearing this, Gian as he unfolded his mental power and found that Nobita and the others had called Fat Tiger and the others, preparing to take the time machine back to the past. It won't be long, maybe half an hour, but maybe the next moment. As he spoke, Gian as he looked at the sky in the distance. He didn't know if he could win the next battle, but he wanted to try. At this time, Nobita had come to his room with everyone and opened the drawer where the time machine was hidden. The blue fat man looked at the group of people next to him, still confused. He didn't know what happened yet. So what bet did you make? Why do you want to go back to the past? It's not allowed to use a time machine casually, right? Everyone didn't mean to tell him. After all, this involved Doraemon's props. If he told him directly now, Doraemon would probably stop the bet. For everyone's happiness, they tacitly chose to conceal this matter. So Sunia went up and pushed Doraemon. Okay, let's go. We are in a hurry now. Everyone came to the time machine, and Nobita sat in the driver's seat. Go to the time you went last time. Who knew that this time the computer rejected him? I'm sorry, it's impossible to reach the last time point. Ah, why? Nobita held his head and was a little depressed. If the time is different, there will be no way to see Sun Wukong. Because you didn't record the time last time, there may be a time difference of plus or minus 24 hours. Just when Nobita was arguing with the machine, Fat Tiger had no patience to play with them. Don't talk so much, let's go quickly. As long as Sun Wukong really exists in that dynasty, no matter what time you go, you will definitely be able to see Sun Wukong. The machine thought what he said made sense, so it reminded everyone to hold the handrail firmly and started its engine. Everyone was almost unable to stand firm due to the sudden acceleration. Fortunately, no one fell down, otherwise things would be troublesome. The group soon arrived at their destination, and the time machine threw them all out of the time tunnel, very fiercely. Doraemon was looking at the time machine on the ground. He put his hands on his hips, and was very dissatisfied. Really, since I installed the voice system for him last time, he has become more and more rude. Fat Tiger couldn't wait to ask Nobita. Nobita, you said you met Sun Wukong here last time, where is he now? Nobita shook his head. I don't know. After all, the time and place are not the place I came last time. Just as everyone continued to argue about where Sun Wukong was, Shizuka suddenly asked everyone to be quiet. Listen carefully. Is there any strange sound nearby? And is it approaching at a high speed? After everyone quieted down, they heard a burst of horse hooves, and even the ground was shaking slightly. Doraemon reacted and walked a few steps up to the top of the hill, and saw a dark crowd not far away. This scared the blue fat man so much that he ran down quickly. Everyone hide quickly. There is a large group of people riding horses over there. If you run into them head on, you will definitely be trampled to death by the iron hooves. Then Doraemon found a stone to hide. The others quickly found a place to hide, so as not to be caught by this group of people who looked like gangsters. The 5 people were divided into 2 groups and hid behind the rocks, with Nobita and Doraemon in one group. Now the blue fat man finally had time to ask Nobita what happened this time. Because Fat Tiger and the others said they wanted to see Sun Wukong, so I brought them here. Doraemon was helpless. Can you wake up? Sun Wukong is a mythical figure and does not exist at all. But I really saw it, and then a little boy came, and he mistook me for Sun Wukong. Nobita explained to Doraemon with a serious face, but he immediately exposed the mistakes in Nobita's words. You said you met a little boy, and understood what he said. But you didn't eat the translation konjac. How could you understand the language of China? Chapter 361 Change begins. Nobita was speechless after being confronted by Doraemon. He really hadn't thought about this. How could he understand what the other person was saying? But I really encountered it. Forget it. This is not the point. The point is that if they didn't see Sun Wukong, then your future props will be left to them to use. After hearing Nobita's words, the blue fat man was instantly shocked. He didn't expect that this guy would use his pocket as a bet. How can you make a decision without authorization? Do you know that if the future props are abused, the consequences will be very serious? In the end, Doraemon was helplessly defeated by Nobita's pleading eyes and began to take props from his pocket. "Really, Nobita, I won't lend you anything to play with in the future." While talking, Doraemon took out the game console from his pocket and put it on the ground, ready to clean up Nobita. He also recognized this thing. "Isn't this the prop I put in my room just now? What is it for?" "This prop is called the hero game console. Stand in this passage first, before they find you. Hurry up." Nobita believed Doraemon's words and stood in the passage immediately. Then the blue fat man took out the game card, found the game Journey to the West, and put it into the card slot. The platform below for people to stand on was immediately opened, and Nobita fell into the game world. Doraemon was counting the time outside, and 2 minutes later, he opened the safety cover of the game console. At this time, Nobita had just defeated the first monster and was feeling proud in midair. Doraemon could only break his heroic dream. "Nobita, stop playing and come out of this passage." "Ah, why? I haven't finished the game yet, and I don't want to come out yet." Doraemon looked helpless. "Hurry up and appear in front of everyone as Sun Wukong, so that my props can be saved. Do you understand?" After listening to the explanation of the blue fat man, Nobita finally understood. "So that's it. Doraemon, please get out of the way. I will fly out from here immediately." After Nobita finally came out as Sun Wukong, the two immediately split up to create the illusion that Sun Wukong existed. "Just let Doraemon attract everyone's attention first, and then Nobita will fly over from the sky to let everyone see that Sun Wukong really looks like Nobita." But in a place that no one noticed, the Bull Demon King in the game console discovered the hole in the sky, so he left his throne to find out. After all, it is the most intelligent and powerful existence in this world, with a certain degree of autonomy and wisdom that other monsters do not have. So, in addition to this small world I'm in, there are other worlds. The Bull Demon King stretched out his hand and grabbed the edge of the loophole, slowly appearing in the world where Nobita was. When it stood on this land, the change of the world officially began. The ancient will and endless power poured into his body, turning him into a real Bull Demon King, not just a game data. In the time period where Yu and Daisy and the others were, countless black mists suddenly appeared in the sky and began to constantly infect people's bodies. Even the rules of the world began to change. The memories of people on Earth began to be tampered with, and the humans in the world began to transform into demons. All of them felt this huge change and frowned. Yu and Daisy stood up and looked at everyone. "My prophecy has come true, and the changes in this world have officially begun." Endless fog poured in from the center of Tokyo City, and the people shrouded in this fog had a hint of madness in their eyes. The change in the rules of heaven and earth also caused people's memories to be quickly tampered with, just like Nobita used the if phone booth. Everyone was looking at the sky in the house and began to fight against the changing power of the rules. Daisy and Zaoshin were still the same as before, easily avoiding the changes in memory brought about by the change of rules. But it was not so easy for Izanagi and Shizuka. After all, their souls were not as good as these two. Even so, after a burst of intense pain, they still remembered that this world was ruled by the human race, not by those ugly monsters. Here, Yu and Daisy suddenly worried about the soul-devouring monument, because he thought that this world should be what Lingfeng wanted to see. After all, it was originally the leader of the monsters, and the monsters occupying the world should be what he expected to see. If he really wanted to keep this world going, then Yu and Daisy would be in an extremely embarrassing position. On the one hand, he was his teacher, and on the other hand, he was his friend. He didn't know how to choose. And most importantly, would Lingfeng choose to make him a monster too? In this case, he should be very happy, right? Fortunately, at this time, the soul-devouring monument still did not make any expression, and was still quietly observing them. Since he didn't speak, Yu and Daisy took it as his default that the world could be changed back. Shizuka and the others covered their heads and finally got rid of the change of rules. This feeling is so familiar, just like the last time when I was not allowed to scold people. It was unpleasant. After the pain passed, Shizuka complained here unhappily. Last time, he had an inexplicable headache for a long time, which made him unhappy, but he didn't know who to hit. The sky was gradually shrouded in thick demonic energy, and the sun's light had been swallowed up by the grey fog. Yu and Dazi pointed to the place where the fog was coming from. Everyone has felt it. The direction where the fog is coming from is the source of the great changes in this world. Although he said so, Yu and Dazi also felt very strange. Although the plot is indeed based on the original work, if the timeline is really changed, this world should have directly become the world of the demon clan, right? But now it is using demonic energy to gradually erode people's bodies. It doesn't feel like a change in time, but more like something invading this world. The fog, or demonic energy, still surges in waves, but it directly skips their bodies. In other words, when the demonic energy comes into contact with them, they still won't absorb any breath into their bodies. Demission noticed this phenomenon and felt a little strange. Why did the fog ignore them directly? Others did not notice this phenomenon and began to discuss what to do now. Should we go directly to the source of the fog and defeat the monster that brought about the great change? The only person who could say such a radical thing could be Shizuka, who did things without thinking. He was the one who advocated attacking the most. Yu and Dazi had no objection to this. Anyway, they had to go there to fight, and it didn't matter if they went earlier or later. Demission thought about it for a while and agreed, because he didn't want the world to become like this. Fighting was the only way. But Lee Zinai raised his hand and expressed a different opinion. Wait a minute, I have to go back to get the talisman and magic weapon now. Yu and Dazi slapped his forehead. He actually overlooked such an important point. If the Taoist priests did not have magic weapons and talismans, their combat effectiveness would be reduced by more than half. So he urged him to hurry up. Okay, you should go to your house to get the equipment now, and we will wait for you here. Chapter 362 Unreliable Uncle. Am I going back alone? Lee Zinai pointed at himself and looked at them in disbelief. But there are monsters everywhere outside. If I go back alone, I always feel a little scared. The others covered their foreheads. They didn't expect that this child would refuse the arrangement with such a reason. The scene was quiet for a few seconds, and finally Yu and Dazi stood up. Okay, then, a few of us will accompany you to your home. He was so moved that little stars were about to appear in his eyes. Really? That's great. Thank you for being willing to accompany me. It's okay. It's just a change of departure point. It's not a big deal. The others also stood up and prepared to set off together. After going downstairs and opening the door, an extremely unpleasant smell hit them in the face. Yu and Dazi couldn't help but cover his nose. Although there are no monsters, this atmosphere is still very uncomfortable. The reactions of the others were similar. After all, the environment that would be liked by the monsters is generally not liked by humans. The four people walked out of the door carefully and met a few adults. When they turned the corner, they were still talking and laughing as usual, and did not notice anything unusual about these children. Seeing this, Chumushin lowered his head and began to analyze. That is to say, even if ordinary people become monsters, they can't tell whether we are monsters or humans. After guessing this condition, everyone became a little bolder. If they can avoid unnecessary conflicts before encountering the boss, then things will become much simpler. The more manpower they can preserve now, the greater the possibility of winning later. After walking a distance forward, everyone came to a park. The people here still couldn't see the difference between the two, which means that they really couldn't distinguish between humans and monsters. After confirming this, everyone walked on the road with their heads held high. Since other creatures couldn't recognize them as humans, why should they be so timid? Soon they arrived at the door of Lee Zinai's house, and he took out the key to open the door and enter the house. It was still exactly the same as before, and there was no change due to the arrival of the monsters. Dad, where are you? I need to borrow our family's inherited magic weapon for an urgent matter. Where did you put it? The voice echoed in the house. Lee Zinai raised his voice and shouted several times, but no one responded. Strange. According to common sense, shouldn't my dad be drinking alone in the house at this time? Why is he gone? Seeing that no one was at home, Lee Zinai, who had to give up the inherited magic weapon first, walked back to his room and began to pack up the talismans and other things necessary for battle. After he stuffed a large stack of talismans into the talisman bag, he walked out of his room with satisfaction. Yu and Daisy took the opportunity to glance inside and found that the little ghost who was in there last time was gone. Where is the soul of that little boy? You must have been saved. Lisa nodded. Yes, yesterday was the last day. I didn't expect you to see it. Sigh. Seeing that they started to chat, Shizuka stepped forward and talked about business. What about your inherited magic weapon? Zyadishan also interrupted. Yes, you are the only one in your family who has spiritual power. You should know the location of the inherited magic weapon. Seeing that everyone had guessed this, Lisa Nayu had to admit the fact. The sword is in the attic on the 3rd floor. It is locked in our family's treasure box. I can't open it. As soon as the voice fell, Yu and Daisuke and Imushin spoke at the same time. Although we don't know the reason, you lied. This child is really too simple and will not hide his soul fluctuations. In addition, his soul is already very powerful, so the two of them can easily sense whether he is lying. Seeing that his lie was exposed again, he touched his head a little embarrassedly. Well, actually, opening that box requires the blood of our family members, but I'm afraid of pain. Hey, what are you going to do? Let me go. Before he finished speaking, Yu and Daisy and Shizuka grabbed one of his hands and walked to the 3rd floor. Since he has a way to open it, the problem is much simpler. Just drag him over and make a few drops of blood. The group came to the 3rd floor and asked Lisa Nayu to point out the box that contained their family's magic weapon. Under the coercion and inducement of the two, he had to point to a dark red ancient wooden box. But what surprised them was that this box was actually open. Shizuka immediately suspected Lisa Nayu. Are you lying again? Tell me where the real box is hidden. But Yu and Daisy next to him reached out and stopped Shizuka. No, he didn't lie this time. This box does contain their family's magic weapon. At least it used to be there. Since he didn't lie, the magic weapon in this box was taken away by someone else. Yu and Daisy reached out and touched the array pattern on the box, carefully feeling the integrity of the array pattern. This array pattern is complete, and there is no sign of forced destruction. In other words, it should have been taken away by your father. After listening to Yu and Daisy's analysis, Lisa Nayu was even more confused. It's impossible. My father can't use this sword now. Why would he take this sword out? This is exactly what I'm curious about. What would an ordinary person do with this sword? To get rid of monsters? Yu and Daisy chuckled beside him. Let's not talk about whether he has the courage. In this world, where monsters are extinct, he still wants to get rid of monsters? It's just a foolish dream. But they soon thought that in this situation, it seems very likely that he would go out with a sword to get rid of monsters. The world is occupied by monsters. If the uncle really hates evil, he might not sit idly by. Moreover, even if he has no spiritual power, he can still use some Taoist magic. Just when everyone was about to go out to find him, the uncle actually came back by himself. Lisa Nayu hurriedly went to meet him. Dad, you're back. I'm so glad you're okay. Then he quickly noticed his empty hands, and his face immediately became very ugly. Dad, where's the family heirloom sword? You didn't lose it by accident, did you? His father smiled and stretched out his hand to flick Lisa Nayu's head. Are you kidding? How could I lose it by accident? After hearing this, Lisa Nayu was relieved. As long as the inherited magic weapon was still there, it would be fine. Things like that would cause harm to the Demon King. Of course you have to take it away and throw it away yourself. The uncle's next words made him feel like he was falling into winter. His father actually threw away the family's inherited magic weapon with his own hands. Only then did they notice that there was a trace of strange aura on the uncle's body. He should have inhaled the demonic aura and began to transform into a demon. Yu and Daisy then woke up. Damn, I forgot that the uncle is an ordinary person and has no way to resist the erosion of demonic aura. So he and Shumashin quickly opened the induction technique and carefully searched all the places where he might have discarded the magic weapon within a radius of 900 meters. Finally, Yu and Daisy found the light blue sword in a garbage recycling yard. Chapter 363. Doubts about the timeline. At this time, Lisa Nayu was rubbing his father on the ground, and Yu and Daisy and the others were going to find the magic weapon to prevent him from being taken away by the people at the garbage recycling station. but seeing Lee Zinayu rubbing his father on the ground, they really couldn't help it. Hey, Lee Zinayu, he is your father after all, how can you treat him like this? Shizuka also nodded. Yes, you should take care of your elders. Then Yu and Dazi and Shizuka pushed Lee Zinayu away. Let us do it. You go to the side and take a rest. The two men were ready to fight, and Lee Zinayu quickly pushed them out of the door. There was a limit to how much he could vent his anger on the uncle. If he let these two guys go, would he still have a chance to survive? After walking out of the door, they went straight to the garbage recycling station that had just been detected by mental power. Lee Zinayu felt the call of the magic weapon from a distance and hurriedly ran towards the direction of the garbage dump. And they were on guard around. After all, there was a high possibility that demons would appear nearby. Soon, Lee Zinayu dug out the pale blue sword from the garbage and gently stroked it with his hand. I'm sorry, my dad threw you away because his memory was tampered with. Now, I need your power, Zuenling sword. The sword body made a soft hum in response to him, and then flew to Lee Zinayu's back, and was wrapped in the grey cloth he carried with him. The playful look on Lee Zinayu's face finally disappeared, and his momentum changed dramatically. If he looked like a child the last moment, he is now a real Taoist priest. Okay, I'm ready to go to the source of the disaster. The others finally got serious, and began to prepare for the next life and death battle. Then Shizuka raised a very realistic question. How should we get there now? Xiaoshin smiled when he heard the question. Leave it to me. Then he summoned his magic weapon from his necklace, the somersault cloud. The size of the cloud began to adapt to the number of people, and soon became a cloud that could accommodate 4 people. Could this thing be the legendary Sun Wukong somersault cloud? As a Chinese, Lee Zinayu of course thought of this aspect first. Xiaoshin nodded. Yes, although it is not as powerful as the legend, it is the same as the real Monkey King. Shizuka and Lee Zinayu's eyes were instantly full of stars. Is it such a cool prop? I think I want one. The group sat on the somersault cloud, and then the cloud began to rise into the sky, leaving a residue image in the original place. Not long after, they came to the twisted area, which was the destination of this trip. The thick black fog continued to spread from here, and when it was diluted in the air, it became the so-called evil spirit. As soon as they approached here, everyone was choked by the smell, and covered their mouths and noses. Everyone else was fine, but Lee Zinayu frowned when he approached. No, my body is not as good as yours, and I will be assimilated by the demonic energy here. Chumushin was also a little uncomfortable. Yes, if I go through it directly, I will become a demon. After approaching the mist, Yu and Dazi did not feel anything special, but felt a little bit of intimacy. Ling Feng suddenly appeared and explained, the demon puppet mist was one of the top creations of the demon race. It is a forbidden war weapon. If a creature with a weaker physique is accidentally contaminated by this mist, it will become a low-level demon puppet in a very short time. Now that it has been diluted by the wind, the transformation time has become, and it can be immune to some monks. After listening to the explanation of the soul-devouring monument, Yu and Dazi finally understood the origin of the mist, but even greater doubts enveloped him. You just said that this thing is a forbidden war weapon of the demon race in the past? Of course, soul-devouring monument admitted this. Yes, do you have any questions? But I remember that this movie seems to be about Nobita and his friends changing the timeline in the past, which caused this disaster. Can you explain to me why it is related to this thing? Hearing this question, soul-devouring monument was silent for a while, and blocked him with that omnipotent sentence. I will tell you, when you become a 4th level magician. Although soul-devouring monument was unwilling to explain this, Yu and Dazi still couldn't let it go. The problem originally involved the timeline, but it was the change of rules plus the change of the demon puppet fog. Although the results are almost the same, it now seems that the process is more important than the result. Is it because of the timeline that caused the appearance of this fog, or is it because something else interfered with reality? Now thinking back to the time of gratitude prism before, Yu and Dazi's doubts are even heavier. If the timeline is really changed, then Doraemon, as a future robot, cannot be unaware of the fact that it is illegal to blame people. To sum up, this so-called time tunnel is indeed very strange. Whether it can travel through time and space should be beyond doubt, but the world it goes to does not have the effect it should have. and there are two strange things in the original work. The first is, why Doremi appeared in the past. If according to the change of the timeline, then Doremi should also believe in the Demon Clan. If she believes in the Demon Clan God Bull Demon King, how could she go back to the past to help her brother defeat her belief? The second is, that after Nobita returned to his own time point, why did everyone remain as they were first, and then slowly began to turn into monsters? If history was really changed, then when Nobita and his friends came back, it should be a world full of demons. In short, there are too many weird things in this movie, and it doesn't seem to be a changed timeline. Suddenly, someone next to him pushed Yu and Dazi with his hand. Don't be in a daze. Okay, how should we get there now? He came back to his senses from his wild thoughts, and took out his magic device Dark Star Cloak to wrap everyone. In this case, we shouldn't be afraid of the fog anymore. Let's go. After everyone was wrapped in the Dark Star Cloak, the fog outside was completely isolated, and the group entered the fog smoothly. Just as they approached the edge of the fog, they felt the temperature inside was gradually rising. What kind of heat is this? Why can't even the Dark Star Cloak completely isolate it? Everyone rushed out of the fog with doubts, only to find that the outside world was wrapped in crimson flames. The unquenchable flames kept burning the Dark Star Cloak, which was the culprit for the temperature rise. Yu and Dazi carefully felt the condition of the cloak, and finally smiled with relief. It's okay, this cloak can withstand the flames, everyone can fly over with confidence. Zyadishan nodded, raised the height of the cloud a little higher, and flew over the wall from above. The world inside is not as empty as he remembered, but is filled with all kinds of monsters. Everyone couldn't help but frown. There are quite a lot of monsters. It will be very troublesome if we show our borders here directly. Chapter 364, Monsters. Yu and Dazi took out the wood spirit staff. Even if it's troublesome, you have to go. Otherwise, they will become more troublesome when they fight with the old ghost later. The others knew that what Yu and Dazi said was true, and they also took out their own magic weapons helplessly to prepare for the battle. When Yu and Dazi finished his spell, he turned around and asked, "Is everyone ready? I have to remove the invisibility function of the cloak." Zyadishan had already taken an gang in his hand. Lee Zanayu took out the magic weapon Zuanling sword, and Jaya Lizuka also condensed the greed blade, all ready to enter the battle state. Very good, then let's start. While speaking, Yu and Dazi took back his cloak and put it back on his back to provide protection. The patrolling monsters saw a cloud suddenly appear above their heads, and they were all stunned for a moment. After all, these monsters are all miscellaneous soldiers in the game, and their IQ has never been very high. Many times, they will only take action if their superiors give orders. This is obviously a good opportunity, but Yu and Dazi, who should be the main attacker, lost his mind for a moment. The reason for his distraction was not only because this place was exactly the same as the place where the final battle took place, but also because of the gaze in the castle. Just when he removed his invisibility, the owner of the castle noticed him, which made him miss a good opportunity. When he came to his senses, the surrounding demons had already swarmed over, ready to tear the invader into pieces. Yu and Dazi was still in a bad mood. Just a glance made me lose my mind for a short time. I really don't know how powerful his real body is. Worry is worry, but the battle still needs to be fought. In order to make up for his mistake, Yu and Dazi jumped down from the cloud to attract the main force of the demon clan. As he expected, those low intelligence demons surrounded him as soon as they saw the target, temporarily giving up on others. Seeing that the distance was almost right, Yu and Dazi threw out the magic he had prepared long ago, Ice Storm. The dark blue wind raged around the demon clan, turning all the flying demons back to their original forms, and many of them fell into the magma. Even the monsters not in the center were affected by the slow temperature airflow, and a layer of frost formed on their bodies. These monsters living in the flame mountain have no resistance to low temperatures, and they were quickly eroded by the cold wind, and basically had no mobility. Zyadishan manipulated his somersault cloud to shuttle among the monsters, and the three people above kept harvesting their lives. A few minutes later, only a few monsters who ran earlier were still alive out of the hundreds of monsters. After the first wave of battle, the people on both sides landed at the gate of the palace together and adjusted their breath. Is everyone not injured in this battle? Yu and Dazi looked at the 3 people behind him and asked about their situation. Everyone nodded. Don't worry, if you can still get injured like this, it would be too embarrassing. Since everyone is fine, then let's keep moving forward. There are monsters waiting for us inside. While speaking, Yu and Dazi released his mental power to avoid encountering any traps. Then he took the staff in his hand and led everyone to approach this crimson palace. The Bull Demon King, who was shrouded in black fog, looked at them with interest. He was looking forward to fighting with the strong. As for the dead little demons, he didn't care at all. As long as he had enough energy, he could have as many trash characters as he wanted. The demon generals beside him also looked at the palace gate, waiting for the little kids to throw themselves into their arms. The group walked towards the palace gate. Just as everyone was about to approach the gate, Yu and Dazi and Emushin reached out to stop everyone. Be careful, there is a trap in front of this door. Don't fall into it. Then, Yu and Dazi threw a small stone in front of the door, and the ground there suddenly sank. Shizuka walked past with an expressionless face. It's a simple trap, but it's very useful. When they arrived at the palace gate, everyone stopped here and looked up at the door. Yu and Dazi wiped his sweat silently. Although I have been mentally prepared for a long time, such a big door is still very intimidating. The others also nodded. The gate was about 5 stories high. According to the memory of the movie in the previous life, such a big door was designed specifically for the Bull Demon King. Then, Emushin and Dazi, the 2 strongest people, stepped forward and stretched their hands and feet to prepare to push the door. The 2 stood at the left and right doors. With the blessing of spiritual power, Emushin's strength has surpassed the normal Yu and Dazi. The 2 adjusted their breathing and pushed the door together. The ancient door was opened by the 2 young people, and the owner inside was already on guard. Oh, this time I really made some mistakes coming here. I didn't expect there are so many monsters here. When Yu and Dazi saw the monsters standing on both sides, he regretted that he underestimated the enemy. Others also leaned together involuntarily, and their hearts began to beat wildly to relieve mental pressure. There were many monsters on both sides of the red carpet, and they were basically monsters at the level of demon generals. The Python Girl, the Golden Winged Dapping, the Golden Horned and Silver Horned, the Iron Fan Princess, the 7 Spider Spirits and Sateisu all looked at the 4 children who broke in kindly. The tall figure in the throne was still shrouded in black mist, and it was still unclear. At this time, Yu and Dazi felt a little regretful. Knowing that the plot might change, he shouldn't have rushed in rashly relying on his foresight of the plot. Moreover, when he had already discovered that something was wrong, he should have been more cautious. He was still too rash. The demons standing in the palace suddenly burst into laughter and seemed to be very satisfied with the children who came to them this time. I thought it was some powerful character, but I didn't expect it to be a few children. Haha. That's right, children. How old are you? Have you been weaned? Ahaha. The 2 demons, the Weasel and the Golden Winged Rock, laughed at everyone in the hall, making them angry. Just when Shizuka was about to rush up and fight them, he suddenly felt a chill on the back of his neck. Shizuka looked back and found that a snake behind him was spitting out its tongue at him, with excitement on its face. Shizuka was scared and took a few steps back, almost sitting on the ground. This attracted the second wave of ridicule from the demon soldiers. The python's head turned into a beautiful woman in the air, and she touched Shizuka's chin with her hand. Little friend, would you consider being eaten by me? If you are eaten by me, it will be the most comfortable, and it will be over in a moment. Then she pointed to the 7 women standing together and said, do you see those people? Everyone else looked in the direction of the python woman's hand. The women's clothes were exactly the same except for the color. The 7 sisters are spiders. If they want to eat people, they like to inject venom into your body and wait for you to melt before eating. The 7 spiders immediately laughed. Sister, don't talk nonsense. They are not that scary. Neurotoxins don't cause pain. Ha ha ha. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 365 The hunt begins. After teasing the 7 spiders, the python woman pointed at the eagle-headed man and said, "That guy is even worse. He likes to transform into his true form and peck at people's flesh and blood, slowly tasting them." Based on her description, Yu and Daisy has almost guessed the true forms of these monsters. How about it, little friend? Would you like to let me RRR? Before she finished speaking, the python woman let out a tragic scream, causing all the creatures present to cover their ears. Then her human body separated from her snake tail, fell to the ground, and gradually turned into her true form. A child beside her laid the sword flat and gently stroked the blood stain. "Thank you for your information, but now I can only say sorry." Then he casually waved the sword, and a semicircular blood stain appeared on the ground. This was also a last resort. After all, the difference in the strength of the two sides was too great, and it was necessary to reduce the number of people first. And the python woman had no good intentions either, just to make them lose the will to fight, and then let the monster slaughter them. Since they are enemies, why should they show mercy? This monster is still too naive. Princess Iron Fan was stunned for a moment when she saw the child killing so decisively, and then she fell into a state of rage. Damn it, the Demon King is adapting to his power, and we must not let them disturb him. Hurry up and kill them all. Xiaoshan and the others finally came back to their senses from the bright red scene, and then raised their swords to prepare for the battle. There was no time for them to adapt to the current situation. If they couldn't get over this level in their hearts, they would have to die. Yi and as he began to command, Xiaoshan will deal with the spider, Shizuka will fight Jinjiao and Yinjiao, Lisa and I will deal with Seitesu, and leave the rest to me. After that, he cast a first level wind magic on each of them, as a layer of insurance for them. This was already his limit. If he changed to a second level or third level magic, it would affect his battle. Then, he said in a serious tone, "Everyone, please make staying alive your first priority." The 3 people behind him nodded, and then joined Yu and Daisy to fight the demon tribe that was coming. Yu and Daisy, who was at the front, waved his staff, and several large fireballs exploded around the demons. Thick fog and rubble covered the vision of both sides, but everyone found their opponents with the help of Chumushan. The golden winged Dappen turned into its original form, and flew in the air. Looking at the thick fog below, it smiled contemptuously. "Huh, you have the nerve to show off in front of me with just these little tricks? You are overestimating yourself." Then it opened its mouth and sucked in all the dust and other things. At this moment, a pile of white dust suddenly appeared in the thick fog. This change surprised it a little, and then it sucked harder. When the vision was fully restored, Chumushan's knife was already stained with blood. Just now, he took advantage of the convenience of vision and rushed directly to the spider spirit, who was still in a daze. The poor 7 sisters were chopped off before they had time to spit silk. They were originally fragile, and they usually survived by spitting silk when fighting. As long as they entangled the opponent, the poisonous spider silk would paralyze the opponent and then inject venom. The 2 spider spirits whose chests were cut open gradually turned into their true forms, to colorful spiders that were a few points larger than adults. This change also made Chumushan's guilt disappear completely. After all, they were not his own tribe. Similarly, this change also made him determined to kill them. He only killed 2 because he still had a little hesitation in his heart, otherwise their casualties would at least double. Imitating Yu and Daisuke, Chumushan swung the knife to shake off the green blood on it, and then took a combat readiness posture. The blood fell to the ground, making a hissing sound, and it can be seen that it is very corrosive. TSK, are we fighting with poisonous creatures again? I really have a connection with poison in this life. Seeing this scene, Xiaoshan remembered the snake bite before. The 2 cuts on his feet are still fresh in his memory. Even after being treated, there are still faint marks left. The spider spirits were even more surprised because their strong acidic blood did not corrode the pure white blade in his hand. This was totally unreasonable, because Ngang had now separated from the physical body and turned into a gathering form of spiritual power. He could naturally ignore things like strong acid. Facing the rushing demolition, the 5 mages acted decisively, sprayed a spider silk from their navels, and pulled themselves to the roof. They knew their weaknesses very well. If a warrior got close to them, then they would really have no way to survive. Zyashin was also very clear and immediately used the strength of his trained legs to step on the pillars on both sides and chased after them. When he reached the top floor, several spiders suddenly changed back to their original forms and fled in all directions, leaving him wondering who to chase. So he randomly chose a direction. Anyway, they were all monsters to be eliminated, so it didn't matter who he killed first. But Demishin didn't expect that. After running a few steps, he felt his feet entangled by something. At this time, he discovered that there were a lot of tiny spider silks connecting the pillars that were difficult to see. Zyashin quickly swung his sword to cut off these things and then used his mental power to carefully observe the surroundings. The spider silk here is extremely fine and dense, and if you are not careful, you will be caught and entangled by the spider silk. And while he was standing there, the number of spider silks was still increasing rapidly, and the big web was gradually taking shape. Izuki's mental power spread to the surroundings, and 5 spiders were standing outside and constantly spitting out disgusting spider silk with their spinnerets. Humph, as long as I have mental power, then your spider silk will never get entangled on me. Zyashin immediately formulated a countermeasure, using his mental power to explore the location of the spider silk, and at the same time holding the famous sword and gang, and rushing towards the big green spider. However, at this moment, Izuki suddenly felt that his left foot had lost consciousness, and he almost fell down. Fortunately, he reacted quickly, and quickly used his mental power to make a platform for himself to temporarily stand in the air, and began to check his left foot. I saw a trace of purple marks appearing where the thin silk was entangled, and it was slowly spreading around. I was so careless. I didn't expect that even such a tiny spider silk is poisonous. Do you want help? Then he looked around. The people below were basically in a state of hard struggle. No one could spare a hand to help him. The poison in this spider silk is too small to be fatal, but it will affect the movement. Now, not good. Zyashin suddenly jumped up from the platform, and then a thick spider silk passed through the place where he was just now. It's not over yet, kid. I will avenge our sisters now. Several spider silks as thick as a person's arm began to interweave in the air, making Mushin exhausted. Half a minute later, the battlefield on the top floor finally wove a huge spider web, and Zyashin was in the center of the spider web. Now there are not many places for him to land, which makes him feel very stressed. Moreover, the spider web kept vibrating, and those huge colorful spiders finally showed their figures and prepared to start their own hunting. Chapter 366, Hard Fight. When the smoke was raised by Yu and Daisuke, Shizuka went to Kinkaku and Jinkaku. Although his opponent had 2 monsters, he had no complaints. After all, Dekisugi had 7 opponents, and he only had 2. What was there to complain about? While the opponent lost his vision, he made the same choice as Dekisugi. Let the opponent lose people first. The dark red greedy blade appeared in his hand, and Shizuka chopped Jinkaku with all his strength. What? This guy's skin toughness and hardness are so exaggerated. His carefully prepared attack did work. The blade cut his skin and a trace of silver blood flowed out. But Shizuka's preset full strength attack could only do so much. The fatal attack failed, and Shizuka had to kick Jinkaku with both feet, making himself fly back several steps. Jinkaku finally reacted and realized that he had been chopped by someone just now. But Shizuka had disappeared in the thick fog, leaving him with a lot of anger but no one to vent. In fact, each monster has its own specialty. Junjie has a treasure gourd, but his body is a little weaker. Junjie has no weapons, because he himself is comparable to most weapons. If Shizuka was aiming at Junjie, then this attack would be successful. At this time, the dust on the ground was eaten by the golden winged dapping, and Junjie also saw Shizuka. At this time, the blade in his hand still had silver blood, which made Junjie angry. He touched the scar on his chest and put the blood in his mouth. You cut it just now, right? It looks like you forgot to eat, right? Shizuka clenched his sword. He knew that he had to be calm now, otherwise he would reveal his flaws. And Junjie behind Junjie was also eyeing this place, and now was obviously not the time to go over. The main thing was the gourd in his hand. Shizuka didn't know what this thing was used for. Junjie saw that this guy was unwilling to attack, so he had to strike first. It's not a good thing for both sides to waste time here, otherwise they will definitely be punished by Lord Bull Demon King. Then Yunjiro rushed towards Shizuka, while Junjiro wanted to help him with magic weapons from behind. But when he opened the gourd, he found that he didn't even know the name of a person. Everyone around him was fighting hard, but he could only watch the show. When the battle was over, he would be dead. No, if I go up, he will chop me. I'd better cast a few small spells on the side. Then he began to gather his demonic power and spit out a puff of smoke at Shizuka. At this time, Shizuka just dodged a fist from Yunjiro, and then Junjiro's smoke enveloped the area where Yunjiro was. Oh my eyes. Brother, you're fine. Just watch carefully on the side. Don't make trouble for me. Shizuka fell to the ground, secretly glad that the two of them didn't cooperate well, otherwise it would be a big problem. But this also made Shizuka notice Junjiro, and the dark power surged, and a sword light slashed at Junjiro. Although Junjiro didn't have much close combat experience, he could still dodge this level of attack. The sword light slashed the ground, leaving a crack on the ground. After the smoke cleared, Junjiro came out, covering his eyes. The smoke just now hurt him badly, and almost ruined his eyes. Fortunately, he had thick skin and high resistance, otherwise he would have to quit the ranks of demon generals this time. Because if he had a physical disability, he would not be allowed to exist by Lord Bull Demon King. His scalded eyes aimed at Shizuka, who was standing on the ground observing the opponent's weaknesses. The sword light just now was not powerful, but Junjiro dodged it, and there was a trace of fear in his expression. According to Shizuka's intuition, Junjiro's defense should be much weaker than Yunjiro. When Yunjiro rushed over with red eyes, Shizuka jumped high, passed over Yunjiro's head, and pointed directly at Junjiro. The mage behind him finally realized that something was wrong. He himself had no ability to fight in close combat. Shizuka began to accumulate power in the air, and when he was about to get close, he aimed the greedy blade in his hand at his head and cut it down. Junjiro finally stopped running, knowing that he couldn't escape with his speed. So he raised his hands and tried to block the sword with the wrist guard on his arm. The greedy blade came into contact with the golden wrist guard, which shattered at the moment of contact, and the blade cut off half of the wrist. Golden blood flowed on his hand, and Junjiro's screams echoed in the hall. Both wrists were broken in half, which required a lot of demonic power to recover. Asshole, I must put you into the gourd and make the freshest wine to quench my thirst. He kept cursing Shizuka in his heart, but he didn't show any resentment on the outside. The silver horn behind him was furious and rushed towards Shizuka frantically. Shizuka wanted to pursue and cut off its hand, but the strong wind behind him made him give up this idea. His body was not as good as Junjiro's, and he didn't dare to use his body to resist other people's skills. So he just pulled the blade down and brought up a golden blood rain again. Junjiro also breathed a sigh of relief. Although this process was painful, it temporarily stopped the possibility of his hand being chopped off. Then Shizuka jumped up, stepped on Junjiro's face, and did a gorgeous backflip. Before Junjiro had time to get angry about being stepped on, he saw a silver figure approaching quickly. The horrified Junjiro hurriedly shouted, "No, Junjiro, stop for me, stop." But Junjiro, who was charging at full speed, could not stop, just because he said so. The horn on Junjiro's head hit his brother Junjiro hard. Junjiro's internal organs were damaged by this huge force, and he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. It was just an external injury just now, and the demon power consumed to repair it was still within an acceptable range. But this collision almost broke his entire demon apart, and it seemed that his recovery would be a long way off. This was not over yet. Junjiro, who hit Junjiro, still couldn't stop his steps, and crashed into the pillar behind with Junjiro. With a loud noise, one of the pillars supporting the roof of the hall broke, showing how powerful the impact was. Princess Ironfan, who was beside the Bull Demon King, couldn't help but frown. These two guys were really more of a nuisance than a help. If this noise disturbed her husband, then these guys would die 10 times, and it wouldn't be enough to compensate. But she still had no intention of taking action. After all, her current responsibility was to protect her husband and not let anyone get close to him. Chapter 367, Hard Fight, Part 2. Although the huge stone pillar was broken, it had not collapsed yet, which was a blessing. Junjie quickly pulled his horn out of his brother's chest and asked how his brother was injured. Junjie coughed up blood again. The injury this time was indeed too serious. It turned out that he still had too little combat experience. Brother, don't worry, I will go and avenge you now and kill that little bastard. Then he turned and looked at Shizuka, and the muscles on his body began to bulge gradually. Soon, Junjie, who was not much taller than Shizuka, instantly grew about 2 meters taller. This is Junjie's secret method, which uses a large amount of burning demonic power to exchange for a crazy increase in strength and size. The principle of this move is somewhat similar to Yu and as his giant force technique, but it is not as perfect as magic. But even so, it has increased its strength by about 5 times. Of course, such a large amount of burning demonic power also means that Junjie is really serious this time. However, Shizuka found that when Junjie's body expanded, the scar on its chest began to show signs of continuing to crack. After all, the rough burning of demonic power will put a much greater burden on the body than orthodox magic. Shizuka secretly breathed a sigh of relief. If this is the case, Junjie's body will not last long, and he will just have to fight a protracted battle with it. Just when Junjie was about to rush over to fight with Shizuka, Junjie behind him suddenly called him. Don't go, Junjie, the wound on your chest cannot be delayed, just consider us as admitting defeat this time. Junjie looked back at Junjie in disbelief. Brother, do you know what the consequences of doing this are? Junjie nodded. Of course, but the wound on your chest cannot be delayed, otherwise the problem will be more troublesome. Although his brother said so, Junjie still pointed at Shizuka unwillingly, but he put you. Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Junjie. Don't force yourself, quickly remove the state of your secret method. Junjie could only look at Shizuka unwillingly, and then his body gradually returned to its original state. Princess Iron Fan in the back couldn't stand it anymore. You two little demons actually dared to disobey the king? Tired of living? Do you know what you are doing now? If you admit defeat, the king will not let you go. Junjie looked back at Princess Iron Fan, and then ignored her. Princess Iron Fan stopped talking, and just looked at him quietly. If he really betrayed, death would be his only destination. We are just trying to survive, and don't want to do such a thankless task. You are the strongest opponent we have ever seen, so we don't want to be your enemy. Junjie looked at Shizuka, with sincerity flashing in his eyes. Young man, I wonder what your name is? Seeing that the other party was so kind, Shizuka gradually let down his guard. My name is Shizuka. Really? It turns out that the name of this hero is Shizuka. Shizuka. At the end, Junjie suddenly took out a gourd and shouted his name loudly. Shizuka, who didn't know, subconsciously answered, yes. Then, Shizuka felt an irresistible suction force that sucked him into the gourd. The plan succeeded. Junjie shook the gourd vigorously. Haha, you bastard made a fool of us brothers. Junjie also nodded. Yes, you are smart. You fooled him with just a few words. Now we just need to wait for a cup of tea, and this kid will turn into a pot of fine wine in the gourd. Hahaha. Seiteisu saw that everyone was in a difficult battle and naturally wanted to go to help them, but was stopped by a child. Sorry, Seiteisu, I was assigned to you this time, so I can't let you go over to disturb them. Lee Zinayu slowly took out the cloth-wrapped sword from his back and stood in front of Seiteisu. The golden-haired draw waved his hand impatiently. Stop it, kid, your cultivation is not my opponent. Judging from the strength of both sides, Seiteisu does have the ability to ignore Lee Zinayu. In terms of cultivation, Seiteisu's strength far exceeds that of Lee Zinayu, not to mention that he also has a magic weapon, the purple gold bell in his hand. With this treasure, even in the game, he is one of the last few powerful bosses. But Lee Zinayu still stood in front of him, without the slightest thought of retreating. He also knew that his strength was not the opponent of Seiteisu, but this was not a reason for him to retreat. Even if he couldn't beat him, as long as he could drag it until the end of the other battlefields of both sides, it would also be a victory. As for which side won, he was very sure in his mind that it was his side that won. not for anything else. He had absolute confidence in the strength of his companions. Seeing that the other party refused to give way, Seiteisu had to fight him. Although he himself didn't like fighting, it was impossible for him to just stand by and watch. The furry hands gathered strength. "I'll give you one last chance. Get out of the way. You can live." Lee Zenyu reached a hand into the talisman bag, which was considered to be his attitude. "Since you are so ignorant that you choose to block my way, then go to hell." Seiteisu burst out with magic power in both hands, and a black magic wind flew towards Lee Zenyu, who was still in place. He immediately took out the wind-fixing talisman from his pocket and blocked all of Seiteisu's spells. When the evil wind ended, the talisman in his hand also ran out of power and turned into residue. Seeing this, Seiteisu frowned. So he is a Taoist priest. Now the problem is a bit troublesome. Because the strength of a Taoist priest is not only determined by his cultivation, but also by the talismans they carry with them. If there are enough talismans on their body, they can kill opponents who are much stronger than themselves. And the most annoying thing for him is that his magic weapons and spells are not very harmonious with the Taoist talismans. Forget it, let's try it anyway to see if he is fully prepared. Seiteisu gave up the idea of using his magic power and took out his purple gold bell. This time he didn't say anything extra to Lee Zenyu, but just shook the purple gold bell at him. The purple gold bell was shaken to start a fire, and the red flames quickly spread to Lee Zenyu's feet. A talisman emitting blue light suddenly appeared on Lee Zenyu's head. It was the fireproof talisman he carried. Because Seiteisu was a legendary figure in China, Lee Zenyu naturally had some knowledge of it, so he had prepared for protection early. However, the purple gold bell was not an ordinary thing, and the fire it produced was naturally not an ordinary flame. Although it was not as good as the Samadhi true fire, it was much hotter than ordinary fire. The effect of the fireproofing talisman was greatly reduced in front of the divine fire. Although it could still protect a certain range, the consumption rate was accelerated. In just 10 seconds, the fireproofing talisman that was originally able to last for 10 minutes was burned to ashes. Chapter 368 Junior High School Chemistry Knowledge. Lee Zenyu pinpointed the time when the fireproof talisman would become ineffective and threw another fireproof talisman at his head. This time he was well prepared. For this battle, he brought all his belongings. After all, he was an enemy who could change the world, so it was reasonable to make more preparations. Every time the talisman was about to become ineffective, he would throw out the next fireproof talisman on time. After consuming 8 talismans of Lee Zenyu, Seiteisu had to grit his teeth and take back his purple gold bell. Although this thing is very powerful, it also consumes a lot of energy. I don't know how many talismans this dead Taoist priest still has on him, and it is not worthwhile to waste time with him. The two people present were in a stalemate, temporarily maintaining a balance. Seiteisu didn't want to waste his demon power, and Lee Zenyu was not sure to attack Seiteisu. If he acted rashly, he might be caught by the other party, and then he might suffer. Time went back to the time when Yanshin was swallowed by the golden winged dapping, and Yu and Dazi and the golden winged dappin faced each other from a distance. What's wrong? Do you want to block my way? Don't you think you are overestimating yourself? Yu and Dazi raised his eyebrows. Really? I think you should worry about yourself, otherwise I will kill you later. Seeing this child so arrogant, Jinkai Dappin couldn't help but frowned. Is this child bluffing, or does he have real skills? Forget it, no matter whether he is lying or not, we will know after trying. Thinking of this, Jinkai Dappin opened his mouth, and several sharp arrows made of dust flew towards Yu and Dazi. Yu and Dazi did not dodge in a hurry, but first looked at the composition of these dusts. Let me see, the white composition in the dust is about half, and it will take at least 20 bags to fill it up. Then Yu and Dazi on the ground took the dark blade, dodged left and right, and rushed all the way to the bottom of Jinkai Dapping, and used his feet to leave a dent on the ground. The dark blade in his hand brought a stream of black light and slashed towards the golden winged Dapping that was still in the air. Just when the dark blade was about to cut through the body of the bird suddenly burst out with extreme speed to dodge the attack. Seeing that his fatal sword missed, he was not disappointed. After all, being able to kill this monster in one go was indeed a bit idealistic. landing steadily on the ground. Looking at the after images that kept rising in the sky, Yu and Daisy felt a headache. It's worthy of being a monster with the word peng in its name. It's troublesome to deal with it. Then Yu and Daisy put away the dark blade in his hand and concentrated on using the wood spirit staff. If you want to get close to the golden winged dapping, there is no other way except the rapid flight of the golden cloak. Rather than exposing a trump card that you don't know if it will work, it is more cost effective to try a range attack magic. And seeing it hovering in the air, it probably doesn't look like it wants to rush over for close combat. In this case, it is better to use a special weapon for long range attack, which is much more effective than close combat. So he stood on the ground, using his mental power to carefully capture the movements of the rock, waiting for the moment when it showed a flaw. The golden winged rock was flying in the air, and suddenly the people on the ground stood still, as if waiting for it to fall into the trap. HMPH, you want me to rush over and hit you with my wings? I won't play close combat with you. Then it waved its wings in the air, continuously sending out wind blades to attack Yu and Daisy on the ground. Want to play a long range attack with me? The result is similar to what I expected. You can try the predetermined method. First, it dodged the rapidly attacking wind blades, and then threw several lightning bolts to the back. The golden winged rock was busy making wind blades, and it had no energy to dodge this attack in the air. Although the lightning attack was about to hit it, there was a hint of sarcasm in his eyes. Then the golden winged rock opened its mouth, and a suction force came from its mouth, and the lightning was swallowed into its stomach. Just when it wanted to shut up, several wind blades and countless white smoke suddenly came in front of it. TSK, you want to use white smoke to confuse my eyes? It's useless, just swallow all these things. So it opened its mouth wider and swallowed the wind blade and the smoke together. Then it landed on the pillar, looking down at Yu and Daisy below. Do you have any other skills? Use them all. Yu and Daisy scratched his ears. I see that you don't have any other moves except swallowing, spitting, and flapping chicken wings, right? Speaking of this, the golden winged dappin was obviously angry and was touched by this sentence. For some reason, it always felt that its strength should be more than this, but it just couldn't remember it. So what? Even if I only know these few moves, you were beaten and fled by me? But from just now until now, it seems that you are the one who has been running in the air, right? At this point, Yu and Daisy didn't care what it thought, and directly waved his staff to throw a few big fireballs, trying to wear him down. But at this moment, Shizuka was taken away by Jinjio's gourd, which boosted the morale of the monsters. Really, what is this guy doing? He keeps causing me trouble. Since such an incident happened on the field, his plan must be changed. And Jinchi Dapping laughed wildly. Your companion is really stupid. Don't worry, you will soon follow in his footsteps. And as he raised his hand without saying a word, and threw two wind blades, and Jinchi Dapping swallowed it, just as Yu and Daisy planned. It's useless. It's just a foolish dream to want to hit me with such a soft attack like yours. After laughing a few times, Jinchi Dapping looked at Yu and Daisy below again. It was time to end this battle. Everything I swallow can be used as a weapon. Let me show you how powerful these smoke and dust you throw out can be. Hearing his words, Yu and Daisy was happy in his heart. The opportunity he had been waiting for finally came. Originally, now was not the best time, but because of Shizuka, he had to change his plan temporarily. The belly of the golden winged dapping suddenly bulged, and then a large number of white spikes came out of its mouth. Yu and Daisy picked up his staff and used the magic that he had prepared long ago to calmly cast a spell below. Wind magic, wind whirl. The storm was condensed in his hand and quickly shrank, and it was mixed with a large amount of white smoke and wind blades. Yu and Daisy threw this proud work at the spikes in the sky. The whirlwind and the wind thorns collided in the air and caused a violent explosion. The white smoke and dust once again covered the entire battlefield. Yu and Daisy had spent a lot of money from the beginning. He threw out a total of 30 bags of flour, and all the white mist was made of flour. The explosion caused by the attacks from both sides just now made the flour evenly spread over most of the palace, although the concentration was not particularly high. HMPH, do you want to block my sight with these things? I just need to swallow them again. Just as the golden winged Dapping was about to speak, Yu and Daisy suddenly said, "Today I want to teach you some basic chemistry knowledge." The golden winged Dapping also stopped his actions and waited for Yu and Daz's next words. His magic power began to gather on the magic wand. When the concentration of flour in the air is too high and encounters an open flame, it will explode. After saying this, a cluster of flames appeared on Yu and Daz's magic wand. Chapter 369 Breakthrough. When the flames came into contact with the flour, the explosion spread in this small hall. The explosion of flour was without flames, but the impact force generated by the wind pressure that expanded outward during the explosion was incomparably destructive. The huge impact force began to destroy everything around, and the first to bear the brunt was Yu and Daisy next to him. He injected a stream of magic power into the cloak, and saw that the Dark Star cloak suddenly expanded, wrapping Yu and Daisy tightly. The next to be affected were Izanaju and Seitesu, who were not far away. The two were hit almost at the same time. What on earth is this? Why did such a violent explosion occur? Amid the incredible screams of the golden winged Dapping, the huge explosion caused by the flower submerged his figure, and it was unknown where it flew to. Junjio was still immersed in the joy of defeating Shizuka, and did not notice the explosion at all. So, the two of them welcomed the baptism of fire in such an unclear way, and the goods in their hands slipped out of their hands. Yu and Daisy also achieved his goal, and had already locked the good with the levitation technique and grabbed it. The shockwave soon spread to the direction of Princess Iron Fan. She picked up her palm leaf fan helplessly. These useless things were fooled by a little kid. She complained while waving her palm leaf fan vigorously to prevent the shockwave from spreading here, so as not to wake up her husband who was receiving power. Her idea was good, but the reality was cruel. The huge noise had once again disconnected it from the world. The figure on the throne moved his eyelids, and he was extremely angry at the incompetence of his men. The scope of the explosion continued to spread upwards, just solving the urgent problem of Chumushin. At this time, he was exhausted by these spider silks, and had no ability to fight back. At this time, the breaking point created by Yu and Daisy for everyone arrived. The powerful impact was enough to destroy any spider silk. Chumushin, who was observing the battlefield with his mental power, could not have been unaware of this, and he used his mental power to protect himself fully. When the strong wind rushed up from below, the spiders panicked. "What should we do, sisters? Our spider silk can't withstand such a strong storm." "Stop it, sister. Let's not talk about the spider silk. It's a question whether you can withstand it yourself. Hurry up and prepare for the explosion." The spider sisters wrapped their bodies with magic power, trying to block the explosion from below. Chumushin was hit by this powerful force. Although he didn't suffer any damage, he was thrown several meters high, and the annoying spider silk in the air was exactly the same as what Yu and Daisy and the others expected. It was completely destroyed by the power of the explosion. The spider's magic power began to disappear rapidly, but there was no sign of stopping the impact. The leading red spider knew that the situation was not good, so he gathered everyone together. The spiders moved on the ceiling and came to the eldest sister a few seconds later. "Listen, little sister, eat a few of us now and get through this difficult time." The other three spiders were shocked when they heard the eldest sister's decision, but they soon accepted it with pleasure. "That's right, little sister. You are the youngest among us. You must survive." The little sister also knew that it was impossible to be hypocritical at this time, because everyone's magic power would soon be exhausted. The wind pressure was still gradually increasing, and it had pressed them to the ceiling and could not move, but the human seemed to have spare power. Instead of waiting for the explosion to end and let everyone die together, it is better to sacrifice myself and let the youngest one survive. What's more, it is a question whether they can survive until the explosion ends. The oversized body makes them bear even greater pressure. The size of the four spiders instantly shrank, and then they took the initiative to sink into the little sister's open mouth. When the eldest sister was about to die, she whispered to the little sister, "Remember to live well." Seeing her sister nodded and agreed to her request, the sister went to die calmly. The magic power of the 5 spiders gathered together, and the body of the purple spider swelled several times. Now the explosion is not enough to threaten her, but the price is the life of her sister. Since the beginning of the battle, she has lost all her sisters, and only she is left. Sisters, please believe me, I will definitely avenge you. A sad roar came from her mouth, dispersing the pressure around her. Just as she was about to search for Chumushin to avenge them, a white blade separated her head from her body. Chumushin looked at the spider spirit behind him with some sadness, and slowly put away his knife. When they began to sacrifice themselves, Zyadishin had already found their location. Until the spider got angry just now, he had been hesitant about whether to do it. But just when he heard the spider's roar just now, he heard the spider's resentment towards humans. So Chumushin finally made up his mind that for everyone's life, he must kill her. Watching the spider's head slowly fall, Chumushin felt very sad. After all, this was the sister on whom all the hopes of the sisters were placed. He put the blade back into his soul and took a deep breath to calm down. He would not regret what he had just done, because this was a war related to the fate of mankind. In this situation, any hesitation was not allowed. His hesitation just now was already sorry for his comrades who fought side by side with him. But this did not prevent him from feeling sad for these spiders. After all, he had destroyed their hopes with his own hands. The explosion on the ground gradually subsided, and Chumushin put away his emotions and rushed down. The sound of the ground being hacked came from below, which made Chumushin feel a little uneasy. Lee Zanayu saw the impact of the explosion sweeping over, and hurriedly took out the wind-fixing talisman from his talisman bag. In the face of the explosion, the effect of the wind-fixing talisman was still strong, leaving him a circular safety zone. He was relieved, really, and as he is still so reckless. However, he was not the only one affected by the explosion, so he did not complain too much. Moreover, he found that his opponent did not seem to have any tricks to defend against the strong wind. This golden-haired draw seems to have been injured by the explosion. Now should be my chance to win. Thinking of this, he put his hand on the grey cloth, wrapped around the Zuenling sword, and communicated with the Zuenling sword. The grey cloth fell layer by layer, revealing this sword that was regarded as a treasure by their family. The origin of this sword is unknown. We don't know when it was born or when it came to our home. But the only thing that is clear is its unparalleled power. With a thought, an ordinary talisman flew out of the talisman bag and stopped in front of him. He held the Zuenling sword horizontally and lightly touched the talisman with the sword. Spiritual mantra, soul fire talisman. The difference between this spell and the previous one was that the talisman did not burn, but a blue fireball was shot out directly from the talisman. The golden-haired draw, who was using his demonic power to resist the flames, suddenly saw the blue fireball next to him, which scared him. Damn it, was this done by that stinky Taoist priest? Sure enough, I should have ignored the loss of demonic power just now and tried to find a way to kill him at close range first. Chapter 370 Overwhelming Strength. Although I'm not a body refining demon, I can still withstand this attack. The golden-haired howler stretched out his claws and blocked it in front of the fire talisman. But in a hurry, he did the most inappropriate thing, which was to use his own hands to catch the fire talisman. When the power of the fireball was transmitted to his hands, the golden-haired howler finally breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the temperature of this little guy is not as high as the temperature of the explosion. Just as it was thankful, it suddenly spit out a mouthful of blood from its mouth, and the operation of its own demon power was also disrupted. Discovering the abnormality, he immediately thought, this blue flame, could it contain a soul attack? Damn stinky Taoist priest, you wait. As he roared, his body began to change and turned into the body of his demon clan. The golden eyes began to search for the figure of the child. This time he was going to kill him with all his strength. I think you don't have to wait, because I'm in front of you now. As soon as the voice fell, the smoke and dust in front of the golden-haired howler parted, and a sword-wielding boy appeared in front of him. HMPH, you are overestimating yourself. Seeing that he had come to him without knowing whether to live or die, the golden-haired lion used the hardest horn on his body to fight back. When the blade and the horn collided, the golden-haired lion did not feel that he hit anything, which made him feel that the other party was too weak. What happened? Was this young man too weak and was directly knocked away by me? Or did I just hit him off the right side? Just as he was wondering, a sharp pain came from the top of his head, and he almost lost consciousness. It was only then that he realized that his horn had been cut off by the Taoist sword. Along with the antlers, several soul fire talismans that had been activated also fell. In the astonished eyes of the golden-haired lion, the soul fire talisman exploded, adding a sky blue to the pale world. Lee Zhenou put away the Zuanling sword and did not plan to continue to finish off the knife. First, he felt that compared with other monsters, this golden-haired lion was not bad to the core. Second, in the current situation, it was a question whether it could survive, so he decided to just ignore it. After Yu and Dazzy got the gourd, he put it in the protective ball formed by the cloak and released Shizuka. After all, the aftermath of the explosion around here has not dissipated yet. If he is released directly, Shizuka may be injured without preparation. After he was released, Shizuka looked at Yu and Dazzy with a blushing face and kept saying something like have another glass. Yu and Dazzy wiped a cold sweat. The gourd seemed to be able to turn people into fine wine. Could he have drunk a lot of wine? So without saying a word, he immediately hit Shizuka's face with a set of ice and fire palms to help him quickly get rid of the hangover. Where am I? Am I still alive? Shizuka covered his swollen face and kept looking around. Stop it, you were sucked into this gourd just now, or me. No, let's go. Yu and Dazzy suddenly pushed Shizuka away and took out his own dark blade and held it in front of him. The protective layer formed by the Dark Star cloak was cut open in an instant, and the invisible airflow hit the blade of Yu and Dazzy. Damn, what kind of attack is this? The huge force transmitted from the sword body caused his knuckles to split, and the dark blade flew out of his hand, and no one knew where it went. Yu and Dazzy retreated more than 10 meters before he could barely stop himself. 2 gullies were plowed on the ground by his feet, which was enough to show how strong the force that had just come from. The Dark Star cloak also returned to his back, and the light on the surface also faded a little. It had just injured the strongest first wave of damage. Who launched that knife attack just now? Such a strong force. Yu and Dazzy looked at his hands that were still dripping with blood and thought in horror, this is definitely comparable to a level 4 attack. The sword energy swept across the hall, blowing all the smoke and dust that filled the space upwards. Yu and Dazzy ignored the sword blade that had already flown out, stared at the shadow on the throne, and spat out a mouthful of blood. Ahem. It seems that my biggest mistake this time was not miscalculating the number of demons, but underestimating the power of the Bull Demon King. The ground on the surface of the hall had cracked, and blood dripped from his hands into the cracks on the ground. It took a long time for the echo to come. Princess Ironfan had already retreated to the side in fear and began to pray for the king to forgive her for her incompetence. The black shadow on the throne raised his sword and slowly stood up. Yu and Dazzy also got up from the ground and prepared to gather everyone to escape from here. As of now, the power of both sides is not at the same level. Even if they all die here, they are not the opponent of the Bull Demon King. At this time, Chumushin above suddenly jumped down from the fading explosion and prepared to meet up with everyone. But unfortunately, Chumushin's position was right between Yu and Dazzy and the Bull Demon King. Just when he regained his vision, Xiaoshan saw the majestic figure of the Bull Demon King, holding a sword and looking at him. Human, you just killed 7 of my men. You deserve to die. After saying that, the Bull Demon King raised his knife and fell on Demishan's head. Seeing that the situation was not good, Demishan quickly raised his Ngang to block the machete. But the Bull Demon King's strength had far exceeded his limit. With just one stroke, he cut off the Ngang in his hand. After breaking the famous knife, the big knife seemed to be unaffected and continued to fall, trying to kill Demishan here. At this moment, a man stood in front of him, holding a wooden staff in his hand. Yu and Dazzy held his own staff. Now only his magic tools were enough to try to take the knife. The magic power flowed into the magic wand, as if it was free, and began to strengthen the hardness of the magic wand to meet this blow. However, the blade shattered the wooden spirit staff in an instant, and even the magic stone on the top of the staff was not spared, and was cut by the big knife. The wood debris flew in front of Yu and Dazzy. Seeing this scene, he was not surprised at all. After all, this situation could have been expected. The big knife continued to fall, slashing his chest, and even the cloak on his chest was cut open. Blood splattered everywhere, and a hideous scar appeared on Yuandaz's chest. However, this knife broke through 3 layers of defense, and had reached its limit, and ultimately failed to take his life. Humph, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. You actually took my knife and didn't die. This was the first time that the Bull Demon King spoke in such a long time, and the development of things was indeed beyond his expectations. In its cognition, the situation just now should have been that it killed Chumushin with 1 knife, and then the rest of the people scattered, leaving the palace in silence. As for the dead spider spirits and other monsters, it didn't bother to care. Anyway, they were all insignificant monsters, so if they died, they died. What did it have to do with it? But the child in front of it actually dared to risk his life for his companions, which made it look at him with some new eyes. It raised the knife again. Forget it, I'd better send you on the road together, so that you won't be lonely on the road. You dare. Soul Fire Talisman. Several blue fireballs fell on it, slightly dispersing the black fog. Lizanayu and Shizuka finally rushed over, and blocked Yuandazi and the others. If you want to kill our companions, step over our corpses first. Chapter 371 Mysterious Man. While the 2 men were blocking their way, Chumushin ran to Yuandazi and began to check his physical condition. The Bull Demon King curled his lips. HMPH, you overestimate your abilities. I will only meet your one request. After that, the Bull Demon King raised his foot and aimed at the 2 insects below and dropped it. Yuandazi reached out and grabbed Chumushin. Quick, use the somersault cloud to take them away, otherwise it will be too late. Xiaoshan looked at the Bull Demon King unwillingly. If possible, he really didn't want to escape. But they had no other choice. Escape was the best choice now. The 2 people in front looked at the falling feet without any fear, and even smiled. Hey Shizuka, we are about to die now. Do you have any wishes that have not been fulfilled? Yes, it's a pity that I can't finish the last play of my life. But it's not bad to die together. At this point, Shizuka looked at Lizanayu. If we can go back alive, are you willing to go on stage? Lizanayu looked at the feet in the sky and said without any hesitation, of course I'm willing, as long as we can go back alive. At this moment, a pulling force came from behind, pulling the 2 of them out of the shadow of death. The giant hand transformed by the white cloud pulled the 2 of them onto the somersault cloud, and then slowly rose into the air to escape from here. And Yuandazi was also lifted up by Demushin, and now he has basically lost his ability to move. The bones in his chest are almost broken in half, and the crack extends from the shoulder to the abdomen, and blood is constantly flowing. With such a serious injury, anyone will basically lose their ability to move. Of course, the only good news is that no one has died in this battle so far, which is a blessing in disguise. The Bull Demon King looked at the cloud, and a very ancient memory gradually emerged in his mind. Although it is not the real Bull Demon King, this is the world of Journey to the West after all, and it has also been instilled with the memory of Sun Wukong. Thinking of this, his eyes turned red. So you are related to that dead monkey, give me your life. Then he rushed towards Chumushin, who was still in the air, waving his sword wildly. Sun Wukong is the biggest obstacle in his process of eating Tang Monk. As long as Sun Wukong is gone, he can easily win in this game. Xiaoshan drove the white cloud to dodge left and right in the air, trying to rush out of the hall where the Bull Demon King was. But just after starting to fly, Chumushin discovered something. The speed of this thing has slowed down a lot, like a snail compared to before. What's going on? Why is the speed of this somersault cloud not even 1% left? And the acceleration performance is also approaching 0. He tried to check the power core of the somersault cloud, but the operation of the somersault cloud has reached its limit. In this situation, it is better to say that the space is rejecting it than to say that there is something wrong with the somersault cloud. It was as if there was a force between heaven and earth that was blocking the somersault cloud, preventing it from flying too fast, and wanted them to die here. The source of this power was the ruler of the Flame Mountain, the bearer of the will of one world, the Bull Demon King. Shizuka and Lizanayu were holding Yuandaz's arm to prevent him from being thrown out. After swinging his sword in the air for a while, the Bull Demon King stopped and decided to change to a more convenient way to kill them. Although this little cloud was a little slower, it was too flexible, and its body was too heavy to cut the people in the air. After stopping its movements, the demon puppet mist on the Bull Demon King began to surge, and then turned into countless bats surrounding it. The huge finger pointed at the people who were about to fly out of the door. Go, kill them for me. The black bats came out in droves, almost endlessly, and the people in front of them felt numb. Chumushin could only look forward. My mental power cannot be used for the time being. You two go and try to stop the bats. The shattering of Ngang just now did not have no effect on him. One of the manifestations is that the spirit power is injured and sealed. Seeing this, Lizanayu immediately said, Shizuka, you hold him first. I will try to block them. Then he stood up and gave Shizuka the position of holding Yu and as his arm. Facing the bats that were pouring in like a tide, Lizanayu took out a bunch of talismans from his talisman bag. Zuenling sword, listen to the order. Spiritual power is activated. His own spiritual power poured into the Zuenling sword, and the Zuenling sword amplified it to activate the talismans. Nearly 100 talismans burst out with light together, forming a barrier of flames to block the bats. Lizanayu wiped his sweat. It was a great burden for him to activate so many talismans at the same time. How with such a thick wall of fire, these bats should not be able to get out, right? He looked at his masterpiece and nodded with satisfaction. After they go back, they must brag about their achievements to Yu and Dazi and the others. But the good times didn't last long. The flame barrier behind them only blocked the bats for a second before it was broken through by the black fog. The people in front gritted their teeth. Are they going to be wiped out when they are about to escape from here? Xiaoshan looked at the gate in front and thought unwillingly, give me 2 more seconds. I can live in 2 seconds. Although the idea is good, the bats behind only need 1 second at most to tear these people who have lost their ability to resist into pieces. Watching the bats getting closer and closer, Lizanayu hurriedly took out the last few offensive talismans and planned to fight to the death. At this moment, many white bone arms suddenly stretched out from the surrounding stone pillars, temporarily blocking the flying bats. Others noticed this strange scene, and questions kept popping up in their minds. Lizanayu was thoughtful. This thing seems to be a way to drive corpses. Is there anyone from that family here? The first person that Chumushin thought of was Yu and Dazuki. After all, he had endless magic. But he soon denied this, because he had never shown this kind of magic. Then he thought of Shizuka. After all, he did the most dark things. But no matter what, the black fog was blocked, which was good for them. The Bull Demon King looked at the group of people who were about to leave the hall unwillingly, and decided to make one last effort. Because now it is subject to many restrictions, and cannot leave here for the time being. If the children are really allowed to run away, it will definitely become a disaster for it. Moreover, he wasted so much energy and didn't even keep the children. Wouldn't it be a loss of face for him as a demon king? The Bull Demon King raised his knife again, and the power in the space quickly gathered on the blade. This time, the Bull Demon King used all his strength to swing the knife from the back, and the target was the palace gate. The blade wind plowed a deep gully on the ground, almost blocking all the space they could escape. There was a look of despair on everyone's face. How could they block this level of attack? Just when everyone thought they were dead, a figure suddenly appeared in front of the gate. It was the mysterious man who had just stretched out his bones to protect everyone. He was covered in a black robe. He quickly opened his book and pointed a finger into the hall. Endless purple black mist gradually emerged from the ground. Abyss of the Dead. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 372 Escape. The ground was suddenly dyed black by the power of the mysterious man, and countless incomplete bones emerged from the ground. These were the bones buried underground, preserving the incomplete equipment before their death, which looked a bit desolate. Facing the blade wind that was enough to destroy all obstacles, they were fearless, and raised their broken swords and shields to face death again. The people on the somersault cloud looked at the flying broken bones below and were shocked by the scene. These skeletons, were they all warriors in their lives? Why are there so many people buried here? Doubts lingered in everyone's hearts, but the speed of their feet did not decrease at all. And Izuki, who was controlling the somersault cloud, was also surprised to find that the mysterious power that had been hindering them suddenly disappeared. Could it be that he just extracted the power around him, so the power that hindered us disappeared? Although Izuki had guessed a clue, he could not think about it in the current situation. It was better to run away. The speed of the somersault cloud increased rapidly, and finally escaped from the palace successfully, and his life was guaranteed. At this moment, the abyss of the dead on the ground suddenly became larger, and a mutilated giant dragon suddenly emerged from the ground. The mysterious man seemed to have been hollowed out by the dragon, and knelt on one knee on the ground. He covered his chest, and looked at the skeleton inside, somewhat unwillingly. It's really strange. Why did I suddenly decide to intervene? It's obvious that, if I don't do anything, this matter has nothing to do with me, right? I have to risk my life. The energy consumed by the resurrection of the corpse this time was still within his expectations, but this incomplete giant dragon directly hollowed out his body. Now that he has lost most of his strength, he can no longer escape from here. The Bull Demon King will soon dismantle these bones and kill him. Forget it. At least those children escaped, and this deal is considered a profit. Just when he had lost hope, a hand made of white clouds suddenly grabbed him and pulled him onto the cloud. Just now, Chumashin had noticed that this person had lost his fighting ability, and he couldn't ignore him. After all, he was the savior of his group, and it was impossible to watch him die here. After getting on the car, this guy covered his chest and gasped, "Can't you be gentler? After all, I saved you once. You almost scared me to death." Shizuka spread his hands helplessly. "You can't bear such a little stimulation?" Lizanai also nodded. "Yeah, you are too weak, right? Are you still an adult? Hey, what did you say?" The uncle almost jumped up from the cloud. "If you have the guts, say it again." "Enough, shut up." Demushin shouted in front. "We are going to speed up. Hold the handrail, and pay attention to your feet." The people behind him were stunned. Although they reminded him in time, "Are there handrails here?" As soon as the voice fell, the somersault cloud immediately entered the rapid mode, almost sending them away directly due to excessive neck stretching. When they all grabbed the clouds of the somersault cloud tightly, they avoided the tragedy of being thrown out. Demushin and Yu and Dazi in front were different. They didn't have to worry about these problems at all, because just now, the cloud of the somersault cloud had already wrapped them up layer by layer, and even Yu and Dazi, who was lying down, was not hurt at all. Seeing this, the uncle shouted behind them, "Hey, why don't you protect us? Don't we deserve it?" But Izuki-chan in front did not respond, because the speed of the somersault cloud had now exceeded the speed of sound in the air. In other words, Shizuka in front could not hear what the people behind him were saying, so his shouting was in vain. Yu and Daisuke, who was lying on the cloud, saw that his side had successfully escaped from the clutches of the Bull Demon King, and his will relaxed. He could not resist the sleepiness that came and fell asleep. Seeing this, Izuki-chan became even more anxious. He was now in a hurry to find a place to treat Yu and Daisuke's injuries. That kind of horrible wound, even if it did not hurt his internal organs, if he was not treated quickly, he would die from excessive blood loss and wound infection. Soon everyone approached the range of the demon puppet mist, and Shizuka had to shout the name of Dark Star Cloak. After all, he couldn't use his mental power for the time being, so he could only pin his hopes on the Dark Star Cloak for everyone to pass through the demon puppet mist and the flames. The damaged Dark Star Cloak still didn't disappoint him, and once again became huge and covered everyone. Although there was an extra cut on it, it didn't prevent it from exerting its own effect. After all, it was a top 5 magic device, and it wouldn't be so easily damaged. Although there was a cut this time, the operation of the magic pattern was not hindered at all, so it didn't really matter. And this time it was cut. It was just because the gap in strength between the two sides was too big, and it had nothing to do with the grade of the cloak. Because the cloak is made entirely of magic metal, its hardness has the most direct relationship with the quality of the magic power injected into the magic device. In other words, when Yuandazi enters the 4th level, he doesn't have to be afraid of the Bull Demon King's attack. But now there is no time for him to slowly enter the 4th level. It will take at least 3 or 4 months, and this world will not give him that long. Under the protection of the cloak, the group safely passed through the demon puppet mist and returned to their own world. But the world is not easy to deal with now. Monsters like bats are flying in the air, looking for the remaining humans. After walking out of the monster fog, the cloak completed its mission and returned to Yuandazi's body. After all, the Dark Star Cloak also suffered a lot of spiritual damage in this battle. Although the magic pattern is not as damaged as before, it also needs to rest and recover from the wound. As for Yuandazi's wound, it doesn't need to worry about it. The soul-devouring monument has secretly stabilized his injuries. Under Xiaoshen's command, the somersault cloud slowly expanded and wrapped everyone in this cloud. This kind of appearance has no protection, it just provides a camouflage effect, but it is enough now. At least it isolates the smell. All the way back to Chumushin's house, everyone was relieved. After carrying Yuandazi down, Xiaoshen's tense nerves finally let go, and he found a corner and sat down slowly. The Horcrux was broken by that monster just now. I need to rest. You guys. Before he finished speaking, Chumushin fell into a coma like Yuandazi. The 3 who were left behind looked at each other, not knowing what to do now. Seeing that there was nothing to do now, Shizuka and Lizanayu turned their eyes to the mysterious man. Hey, this weak uncle, what should we call you? The uncle has not recovered yet. The experience just now was too exciting. His little heart is still beating non-stop. Seeing that his face was as white as a piece of paper, the 2 reluctantly withdrew their gazes. Lizanayu expressed his disappointment. I thought this uncle would be stronger than I thought. Shizuka nodded. Yes, I didn't expect that he would be even more unbearable than we thought. Chapter 373. Is it really over? The Bull Demon King in the hall was still fighting with the dragon, and then he relied on his strength advantage to chop off the dragon's skull with one knife. After experiencing endless wars, the dragon finally fell down completely at this moment. The bones began to slowly turn into ashes, flying around in the air in the hall. After experiencing this death, no matter who it is impossible to wake it up from the underworld again. The Bull Demon King watched this scene with a serious face, stuck his machete into the ground, and walked back to the throne. In the previous battle, he was not completely without losses. At least the black fog on his body was much less, and the armor could be seen clearly. I really didn't expect that this dragon would be so strong after being forcibly revived. What level was it in life? The Bull Demon King sighed and sat back on the throne, looking at his subordinates with different injuries below. The golden hair draw had its horns cut off, and its combat effectiveness and demonic power reserves decreased a lot. After all, its horns are one of the key parts of its body and the strongest point of its body power. Now that it has been chopped off, it is almost half useless. The golden winged Dappin was injured by the explosion, and a lot of the hair on his body was burnt, and his demonic power was also greatly lost. The most important thing is that some of the flour he had sucked into his stomach before also exploded, and his most important organs were also seriously damaged. Although the 2 men, Junjio and Yunjio, won the fight, they were also greatly injured, and their demonic power was lost by more than half. Among the monsters present, the only 2 monsters who survived this disaster unscathed were Princess Ironfan and Red Boy. And because Red Boy's demonic power was relatively low, he did not intervene in this battle, nor did he have the ability to intervene. The Bull Demon King looked at the golden winged Dappin. He was the one who caused the explosion at the turning point of the battle, and he began to consider whether Dappin should go or stay. The golden winged Dappin felt the murderous aura of the Bull Demon King, and was immediately frightened by it, and trembled all over. He knew the gap between himself and the Bull Demon King very well, and he had no ability to resist the Bull Demon King who had the intention to kill. So it immediately knelt down and said, "My king, we have lost many soldiers and generals now. If you leave me as a fighting force at this time, I will definitely make up for it." It would have been fine if it didn't speak, but after it opened its mouth, the Bull Demon King was furious when he heard that so many of his soldiers had died. When he thought that the reason they lost was because this guy helped the child mix the flour and he himself was useless. There was no point in keeping him, so he might as well die. At least he would feel better. I don't think it's necessary. You'd better die. Loser, there's no need to stay with me. After saying that, the knife flashed at the throat of the golden-winged Dapping and cut off Dapping's head. It seems that we have another loser here. Do you want to wait for death yourself, or do you want me to give you a quick death? The golden-haired rock, who was about to be crushed on the ground, knew that he would not survive, so he had to say, please grant me a death, my king. As soon as the voice fell, the Bull Demon King used his own knife to end its suffering. Then he put away his sword. You guys go out first. What happened just now is a bit troublesome. I still want to be alone now. Junjio walked out of the hall, while Princess Iron Fan and Red Boy stayed here. What's wrong, my wife? You stay here. Do you want to tell me something? I know what you are worried about, my king. You want to eat Tang Monk's flesh, but you are worried that those people will come to disrupt the situation, right? The Bull Demon King nodded. Yes, you also saw that no one can deal with those guys except me today. Princess Iron Fan pushed Red Boy out with a smile. Why don't we let the child solve this trouble for us? After all, no one has seen his appearance, and his demon power is weak and not easy to be discovered. When the time comes, as long as we work together inside and outside, we will definitely succeed. The Bull Demon King looked at the child who unconsciously shrank back and felt annoyed for no reason. How could such a brave man like him have such an unpromising child? He waved his hand casually. Go, just do what you want. When the uncle finally walked out of the shadow of the Yunxio roller coaster, he had the strength to argue with Lee Zanayu and others. What are you talking about? I'm only 20 years old, not an uncle. Shizuka didn't care about this matter at all. Anyway, it didn't prevent him from calling him uncle. Then may I ask this 20-year-old uncle, how should we call you? You, forget it. I won't bother with you. After he let go of the title, he suddenly felt a little better. My name is Zohang. As you can see, my ability is to call upon the dead. He wanted to use his ability as an introduction, but found that there were no dead people here. After waving his hands a few times, he awkwardly retracted his hands and put them in front of his mouth to pretend to cough. In addition, my ability can also absorb vengeful spirits. If the energy is enough, I can also draw a circle to curse others. Shizuka was not interested at all. Then why is your body so weak? You know, those who deal with the dead, their bodies are infected by the dead air, and they will be weaker than ordinary people. There is nothing to hide about this. Anyway, most people in the dark world know about it. The two yawned together, and then looked at Jiyu and Dazi and the others worriedly, wondering if the two people could wake up. The wound on Jiyu and Dazi's body looked terrible, and according to common sense, he should go to the hospital. But the world has changed now, and no one knows what disaster they will cause after they go out. Demushin's problem is not light either. After all, any injury to the soul cannot be underestimated. Lee Zanayu suddenly turned his head and looked at Zohang. By the way, why are you in that place? Zohang sat on the small wooden chair in front of the desk and began his speech. I took a job of exorcism some time ago. The employer gave me the address of Tokyo City, so I had to come to this city from Hokkaido. But unfortunately, the second day after I came here, just now, I suddenly felt a headache and fainted from the pain. When I woke up, I saw the distorted world outside and the place covered by black smoke. So I put on a set of thick clothes, plus a gas mask and other things, and successfully entered the world. And the most conspicuous place there, as you know, is the palace in flames. So I summoned some undead to explore the way for me, and came to the front of the palace. Then I saw a group of you fighting with the monsters, and saw him being chopped by the Bull Demon King, so I took action. The others nodded to show that they understood, so everyone waited for the two to wake up. But after waiting for a long time, the two showed no signs of waking up, and Jiyu and Daz's wounds stopped bleeding. Seeing that something was wrong, Zohang stood up and walked to Jiyu and Daz's side, observing carefully. This child's wound is too exaggerated, but it's not bleeding. Could he be dead? After hearing Zohang's analysis, the two of them hurried to Jiyu and Daz's side and used their hands to detect his breath. Not long after, Lee Zanayu sighed and retracted his hand. He hasn't breathed for a long time. Could he really be dead? Chapter 374 Delicious Dinner. Shizuka also put his hand under his nose, carefully checking whether he was still alive. A minute later, he came to the same conclusion as Lee Zinayu, and picked up a piece of paper to write a eulogy for him. Seeing this, Zhao Han walked to Yu and Dazi and said, "It's okay. I will revive him as a dead spirit right now, and he can live forever." As he said that, Zhao Han activated his innate ability, calling the dead. The purple light slowly entered Yu and Dazi's body, trying to wake him up from his eternal sleep. But this time it was obvious that he miscalculated. The calling of the dead, which he was proud of, did not work on Yu and Dazi, which made Zhao Han doubt his ability for a while. He shook his hand unwillingly. "What's going on? Is my ability invalid?" Both of them looked at Zhao Han with contempt, always thinking that this guy was unreliable. In fact, Yu and Dazi was in a state of suspended death at this time, and he was not really dead. After all, the soul-devouring monument could not watch its host die like this, and he had left a lot of backup plans to prevent unexpected situations. However, this time, it was not the work of the soul-devouring monument that caused him to enter a state of suspended death, but Yu and Dazi's own reasons. When he was caught in the scene just now, his soul was pulled by the law of the future and saw some things about his future. This situation was also what the soul-devouring monument was happy to see. After all, this child saw the future, which would be of great help to his next actions, and it could be said to be a good thing. The three of them waited for an entire afternoon, and finally went to the first floor, and picked up the phone. Shizuka and Lee Zinayu had to inform their parents, to avoid them coming to their house. Being scolded at that time would be a small matter, but if they had another dispute with the demon clan, their current state would be a waste of their past. Zhao Han walked to the kitchen to see what else was available. Oh my god, what the hell is in this refrigerator? Frogs, snakes, lizards, and big bugs. Zhao Han was frightened by the things in the refrigerator and stepped back repeatedly. He had never expected that this family's taste was so heavy. The others came over after hearing the noise, and after seeing the things in the refrigerator, they also felt nauseous. In fact, it is not just the families of Chumushan. Now refrigerators all over the world are filled with these things. No one is exempt. Under the influence of the world's rules, the originally normal vegetables and meat have become the favorite foods of these monsters. Taking out his hat, Zhao Han prepared to go out. "I'm going to buy some vegetables and make delicious food for you in the evening." Seeing that he was so impulsive, Lee Zinayu hurriedly stopped him. "If you go out, they may find out that you are human." Zhao Han smiled and stretched out his hand to hold his head. "Don't worry, I have the power of the dead. They will only think that I'm a white bone spirit." Seeing that they couldn't stop him, the two had to let him go out by himself. "I hope he won't encounter danger outside. By the way, brother Zhao Han, can you do me a favor?" Lee Zinayu stopped Zhao Han again. He nodded. "Of course, no problem. Just tell me what's the matter. I will do my best. After you go out, buy some cinnabar and yellow paper and other things back. I need to draw talismans." Talismans are basically equal to the fighting power of Taoist priests. Without talismans, Taoist priests are mostly useless. "Okay, I will try my best to help you find these things, and try to buy you as many as possible." After saying that, he turned around and prepared to leave here and quickly finish his business. Although he has the ability to defend himself, staying outside for a long time is not a good choice. Moreover, in today's world, it is still unknown whether things used to ward off evil spirits such as cinnabar and yellow paper are still for sale. Nobita's mother has already started preparing dinner. She peeled the frogs and snakes, removed the bones, and finally chopped them into minced meat. After adding salt and various seasonings, they were fried in a pan, and the aroma soon wafted out. The same was true for Shizuka's family, but her mother did not use snake meat, but only frog meat. As for Fat Tiger's mother, she had already brought out a large plate of fried meat, and placed it in front of Fat Tiger, making him drool. Fat Tiger has never liked vegetables, but this time it was all meat. He was so happy. "Wow, Mom, you are so kind to me this time. You cooked such a big table of meat for me. Thank you so much, dear Mom." His mother smiled and tapped him on the head gently. "What nonsense are you talking about, kid? When have I ever been bad to you? Eat it quickly." Fat Tiger picked up a piece of meat and put it in his mouth and bit it. It felt a little strange. Why is this piece of meat a little sticky? But when he bit it hard, the juice inside flowed into Fat Tiger's mouth. The delicious taste made Fat Tiger's eyes narrowed with joy. So Fat Tiger ate 6 bowls of rice tonight, all of which were the sticky meat. Fat Tiger's mother cleaned up his bowls and chopsticks and said, "Strange, doesn't this child usually like to eat sticky worm meat?" Fat sister smiled and said, "It may be, because the rice you cook is delicious, so he gradually likes this sticky worm meat." Ziofu is the worst, because their family is rich and this point has not changed, so the food they eat is naturally more advanced than other families. So his mother bought a bunch of high-end ingredients like spiders and centipedes, and made him a feast of all insects. When he saw the food on the table, he almost vomited, not to mention his appetite. And Nobita also had his dinner, a plate of fried meat, a bowl of rice, and a piece of lettuce. Nobita and Doraemon sat in their seats, picked up their chopsticks, and looked at each other, and then the blue fat man turned his head away, and didn't want to look at him. Nobita knew that he was in the wrong. After all, the bet was not agreed by Doraemon, and he made an agreement with Fat Tiger and others privately. This afternoon, they played a tape of Journey to the West together, but there was nothing in it, which disappointed everyone. So far, Doraemon has been angry with Nobita, and doesn't want to talk to him. The two picked up the fried meat, and put it in their mouths, and then they shouted in unison, "It's delicious." Nobita's mother smiled behind him. "Of course, this is fried with your favorite frog meat and snake meat." After that, the faces of the two changed. "What ingredients did you just say?" "Frogs and snakes." Nobita choked and swallowed the food in his mouth. "Mom, what kind of meat did you say I like?" "Frog meat and snake meat." Nobita Tamako finally put down her spoon. "Yeah, how come you forget what you like to eat?" Then she put on gloves, picked up the stew pot on the stove, and placed it in front of everyone. "It's finally stewed. This is Dad's favorite soup, lizard tonic soup. Come on, let's eat." Nobita and Doraemon looked at the purple soup and immediately swallowed their saliva. How can people eat such a strange thing? They remembered the frog meat and snake meat before, and their stomachs churned. They quickly left the table. "Sorry, I'm full." Nobita's father looked at the two of them, a little puzzled. "It's weird, what's wrong with them today?" Then he picked up the spoon again. "Forget it, I'd better try Mom's cooking first." He scooped a spoonful of purple soup into his mouth, and Nobita's father looked happy. "It's delicious." Chapter 375 Speculation. Zohan had been away from home for 2 hours, and there was still no sign of him coming back. Lisa Nayu and Shizuka carried Dekisugi to the bed and let him have a good rest. During this process, Yu and Azzy still did not move at all, and looked like he was dead. The two were too bored waiting, so they found a set of black and white chess at Zyashin's house to play. Lisa Nayu put down a chess piece. "I will make this move, and then I will be the checkmate." Shizuka on the opposite side was so surprised that he didn't even notice that the chess piece in his hand fell to the ground. "How is it possible? You are obviously from China. How can you play black and white chess so well?" "Let's play again." Shizuka, unwilling to give up, played another round with Lisa Nayu, but was still beaten without any ability to fight back. Seeing this, Lisa Nayu mocked from the opposite side. "Haha, I won again. You are too bad at playing chess, aren't you?" "What did you say? If you have the guts, try to say it again." Shizuka looked at Lisa Nayu with anger on his face. What he couldn't stand the most was that others said he was a bad player. Then the two of them started fighting on the floor, and the whole house was shaken by them. Yu and Dazuki, who was sleeping on the bed, was finally awakened by them, and slowly opened his eyes. "What's going on? I just saw the critical period. Who is making a fuss here?" "Hiss, my wound hurts so much." When he woke up, he saw a big cut on his body. "What's wrong with these guys? It's dark, and they didn't do any emergency treatment for me." Seeing that they were so unreliable, it seemed that he could only treat himself. He touched the wound on his body with his mental power, and prepared to suture it simply. But at this moment, he found that there was a strange power lingering in his wound. This power was not to hurt him, but to protect the blood from flowing out of the wound and filter the bacteria in the air. This power. Soul-devouring monument. This time it should be you who helped me, right? Thank you so much. Soul-devouring monument snorted arrogantly in the sea of consciousness, and there was no other answer. Yu and Dazi continued to use his mental power to suture the wound and connect the bones and flesh on both sides. With the help of the soul-devouring monument, the connected flesh and blood were not missing a bit. Then he cast a third-level rejuvenation spell on himself, completely healing his injuries. He moved his arm to make sure the wound would not split, and then sat up from the bed. Then, he saw the two people fighting in the room, and he immediately became angry. Not only did these two people fight, but they also smashed their desks and bookshelves, and even left a lot of dents on the tatami. So Yu and Dazi flashed behind them, and punched the two guys on the head. "You two, stop it. Otherwise, I'll make you pay." They had big bumps on their heads, and they knelt on the ground to apologize to Yu and Dazi. "I'm sorry, please forgive us." Seeing that the attitude of these two people was pretty good, Yu and Dazi nodded, as if he forgave them, and then walked to Dekisugi. "What happened to him? Why did he fall into a coma like me?" The two of them looked at each other, then looked at Yu and Dazi, and said in unison, "Sorry, we forgot." Two more big bags appeared on their heads. "You can forget such an important thing. Then what else can you remember?" At this time, the soul-devouring monument explained for him. Before, his Horcrux was broken, and his soul was damaged, so he fell into a coma. Hearing that the old man's tone was not very anxious, he felt relieved. "So how is he now? In your current condition, can you save him?" "It's very simple to save him. It's only a matter of time for him to wake up." Then the soul-devouring monument released its power into Zayashin's soul to help him repair a small part of the broken soul. Soon he took back his power. "No problem. He should wake up soon." As soon as the voice fell, Chumashin covered his head and sat up. "What's going on? I felt like someone helped me with treatment just now." Seeing that the last wounded person woke up, everyone's hanging hearts were relieved. When Demishin recovered from the headache, he saw the room covered with bruises. "Ah. Why is my home so messy? Did a monster come here just now?" And as he pointed at the two people and said, "No, these two guys just had a fight. Don't worry, they will clean it up." At this time, Shizuka and Lizinayu had already started cleaning the room, and it should be back to normal in no time. Zayashin nodded. "That's good. This is where we live. It's good that no monsters come. Don't worry, I cast a magic pattern here, and those little monsters can't find our breath." Demishin was relieved, and then summoned in Gang from his soul. The white sword has been almost repaired, with only a few traces left at the broken end. Fortunately, the knife is fine, otherwise I would be heartbroken. Don't worry, this thing coexists with the soul. As long as you are not dead, it will not be completely destroyed by others. After briefly explaining the principle of the Horcrux, Yu and Dazi pulled out a chair next to the desk and sat down. "Okay, now can anyone explain to me what happened before?" Lizinayu stepped forward and told him about escaping from Hoenn Mountain and meeting Zhao Hong and returning here. After saying all this, Yu and Dazi finally understood the whole story. Zayashin looked at Dazi. "Then you make the decision. What should we do now? What should we do now?" "It's very simple. Wait. The opportunity to solve everything will be tomorrow." And as he looked at his watch and was already confident of victory in this matter, then he raised his watch. "It's 8:42 at night, and the agreed time tomorrow is—" "Wait a minute," Lizinayu suddenly interrupted, interrupting Yu and Dazi. "What time did you say it was now?" Yu and Dazi looked at his watch again. 8:42 at night. Is that wrong?" "Yes, your watch is about 10 minutes fast. If you don't believe it, look at the alarm clock on your desk." Everyone looked at the almost forgotten alarm clock and found that the time was really as Lizinayu said, about 10 minutes fast. Demishin also looked at his watch. "My watch is also 10 minutes fast, the same as yours. Is it because of the geographical problem over there?" The two began to adjust their own time, and a guess in Yu and Daz's mind began to slowly take shape. There are still 13.5 hours left until the time we agreed to meet with Nobita and the others, so let's adjust our status now. "Why Nobita?" Zayashin also realized something was wrong and asked quickly, "How could it be related to them? Could it be?" Yu and Dazi nodded. "Yes, this incident was caused by them. If we want to end it, we naturally need to let them help." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.